Good morning and welcome to a special committee of the whole of the municipality of the county of Annapolis. We'll begin with roll call. District 1, please.
Bruce Trout.
District 2, Brian Fazzicano.
District 3, Dustin Enslow.
District 4, Claude Bartle.
District 5, Lynn Longmire.
District 6, Alec Morrison.
District 7, David Hudson.
District 8, Michael Gunn.
District 9, Wendy Sheridan.
District 10, Brad Redden.
District 11, Diana Blah.
Thank you. Is there any disclosure of interest? Thank you. And we have the order of the day. Is there any change to the order of the day? Thank you. We'll begin with a presentation by the Manager of Finance, please.
Thank you. You'll notice on your desks there is a copy of this presentation in case you want to follow along or take notes. We did put it on both screens here. I know you guys both have to turn around and cock your head, so Eric's going to follow along on that screen over there.
Thank you.
For reference. So welcome to the 2023-24 operating budget. So staff have worked together to present a budget with no change to the tax rate, while accommodating increasing costs of providing the services, as well as considering reserve replenishment for future capital budgets as well. So this is my first budget in Nova Scotia, but probably my 12th municipal budget overall. So I'm looking forward to the discussion today as we support you in finalizing this year's budget. We've got our executive management team here, so if there's specific questions to their operation, I'll call on them as needed. And I brought my manager of revenue as well, in case we have assessment or property tax questions, because she's our guru for that.
Miss Guru.
New title. So this is the agenda for the day. We'll start just with the introduction, set the framework, set the groundwork for the budget. We'll talk about the changes in assessment. I think recently we had the PVSC come and present, so they were talking about the changes in assessment this year, potential peaking of assessments. I think that's a concept we need to remember in this year's budget process. We've got our mandatory contributions. These are items like education, policing, the items that we don't really get a whole lot of say over. We'll talk about the budget pressures and the items that staff have considered. And then some reserve forecasts, debt forecasts, and then we'll go through each cost center. There's interest in having the org chart, if you will, for each cost center. So I didn't include that in the document itself. However, it is included in your presentation today, so you will be able to see all of the staff included in the specific cost centers as well. So right off the bat, correction, the population that I included in the budget document includes Middleton and Annapolis Royal. So our population for just the county is 18,834.
I thought it was high.
Yes. Unfortunately, with the other demographic statistics, I am at the mercy of Statistics Canada or the province of Nova Scotia, and they don't factor Middleton and Annapolis Royal out. So just keeping that in mind, those are included, but I don't really have a way myself to factor them out. With that, this is the distribution of household income. So median household income is $56,800. Last year, or the previous census, sorry, this is based on 2020 census data. 2016 census was $49,589. With this table, we see kind of a shift in the income. The orange is 2016 census, blue is 2021. So there's been kind of a shift in the income distribution for households over the past 4 or 5 years. The financial condition indicator that the province uses, I forget what it's called, residential tax effort. And it assesses affordability. So anything below 4% is considered low risk, which gives council some room to increase tax rates if needed. So we're at 2.6% based on our last one. I used all of the updated calculations to recalculate this based on the budget that's before you, and that number has gone to 2.17, so a slight increase in affordability based on median assumptions. It's not a cold hard rule for everybody. Some people will feel it more than others, of course, but that's a general benchmark that the province uses. And just a quick discussion on poverty rates. So Nova Scotia is the highest in Canada, tied with British Columbia. When we break this down by areas in Nova Scotia, Annapolis County is the highest at about 12.3%.
Everybody struck me last night.
Not good news, but. So these are some of the considerations that we made when preparing the budget. We tried to keep taxes and area rates unchanged. There are some area rates bound by agreement or loan repayment that have changed, and you'll see a table with the contrast there. But the ones that are county controlled, we left them the same. So the increase in revenues is a result strictly of assessment increase from PBSC. This budget, I was really hoping to provide you with transparency, where the figures are, where the staff are. This is something that we were really striving to provide. So if you do have any questions or suggestions on how to be more transparent, let me know. The revenues in prior budgets were separated out, and it was presented as total revenues versus total expenditures. A lot of revenues are specific to the service provided. Example, building permits subsidize the cost of providing the building services. So we've taken those specific revenues and put them in that cost center to give you a net impact of what that service is costing the residents on their taxes. So that might look a little bit different than prior years. As I said, staffing is included with these slides. I believe you've been briefed on there is a cost of living or inflation for staff included. The average is about $44,000 impact in this current budget, and to modify it by a percentage is about $10,000. The other big change in this budget is centralized fleet and facilities. We have a manager that is, we have a director that is managing fleet and facilities. And the costs for fleet and facilities were all over the budget and all over in different cost centers in our GL. So what we've done is we've put them in one place so he can better track and manage what he has available for his facilities and for his fleet. And then there are cost recoveries, which we can touch on as we go through the different cost centers, as a method of expensing them to the appropriate service area, but managing the costs in one location. All right, so these are our current tax rates. These are not proposed to change with the current budget in front of you. We're looking at our residential tax rate of $1.025 per $100 of assessment, and our commercial is $1.80. And these are our current area rates. There's a range. We have a lot of different area rates here, so it's all on the website, but as a summary. And then the far right column shows any area rates that are proposed to change. So the paving rate, this is by loan agreement. This is the new amount per year per that agreement. Kingston Fire Protection, this is set by the Kingston District Fire Commission, and they have proposed a decrease in their rate for the current fiscal. I think that is based on their increased assessment and what they needed to sustain their budget. So good news for those residents paying that. And then the Bridgetown community rate, we have kept the same logic as the prior year, and there is the next slide will detail what is included in the Bridgetown community rate. We had some debt retirement. There was a sewer loan, a Bridgetown buildings loan, and a fire loan for Bridgetown that all retired in 2022. So that was a reduced overall cost. So we expected the rate to decrease. And then just the other costs of providing the services that were included in that calculation have decreased. This is how it was calculated prior. So this is just based on actual costs that we have forecasted in the 23-24 budget. So the arena wages, the town hall has sold, so that was a reduction in cost. the theory in prior years, we applied the same, is a 25% cost of the public works related specific to Bridgetown. So that is assuming that Bridgetown is getting a 25% increase in level of service. We have stuck with the same logic, just decreased costs in the 22-23 fiscal year. So that's the reason for the change there. The debt repayment, as I said, we had 3 loans that were repaid in prior years. All the other loans remain. And then fire services support. This stayed the same. This is an amount that we give to, I believe, the Bridgetown Fire Services over and above our county contributions. So this is recovering that from the Bridgetown community rate.
Councillor Collins.
So why is the arena wage cut severely? So is that arena person only working half-time?
This is for the winter, for the arena. So that's what the forecast was. For the winter, like they would be supporting the arena in the winter.
At 21?
That's right, yep.
So we have 2 people work the arena in Bridgetown at $21,000 a year.
Right, for the winter months, and it is,
That doesn't even make
you let me
sense.
know.
No, it's the other way around.
It should be left at $49,179.
If I may,
Yes, yeah.
under our agreement with the BCRA, we provide a person from middle of October to middle of March. And then we provide another half person to cover that up. BCRA then also adds another person in there on weekends. So we've been looking at the numbers for this past year, and those are the expenditures that we're showing right now in terms of how we've allocated the resource. And as you know, we are moving forward with another initiative with the BCRA to allow them more opportunity to manage personnel and us just pay money to have that hired for us.
Well, that's what I'm saying is how I would like to know how you're hiring a person and a half now.
No, we're hiring 1 full FTE for 6 months.
Yes, and a half
Split over
person you
time.
said.
So it's split over time. Our agreement with the BCRA is we would have a person right throughout the whole year. But that person would do other duties in the summer months.
Right.
Okay, so that doesn't show up here. So there'd be another, say, 10, 15,000 added on to this to do the complete mix.
But in the Bridgetown area rate, you do not pay any county people to work in the Lawrencetown arena, in the Citizens for Lawrencetown area. You don't pay anything toward the Middleton arena. This is specifically to the Bridgetown community rate. They wanted to make sure they had a person working there. You're not paying them $21,000 a year for 6 months for a person and a half. If you are, I would like to hire 6 or 7 of them. So I disagree. I'm not going to vote for that. It should be left at $49,170. I agree that the loans that were paid out comes off of that area rate. And the same as fire services, until the Bridgetown Community Group says that they're going to be satisfied with what the county's given the other fire departments, they have requested to pay the extra $46,000. That was during dissolution. They're the ones that requested that, not us. And the same as the request to make sure they had operators to make sure they're a rank brand. And we're not getting that throughout the county, so I am not voting for that 21,286. It should be left at 49,174.
I'll speak to a couple of points there just really quickly. This offsets the salaries that are in our budget. So there is 21,000 in salaries allocated. It is based on a rate multiplied by the number of weeks, multiplied by the number of estimated hours per week. That is how the 21,000 was calculated. So we can absolutely take a look at that. That's not a problem. And the 46,000, all of that is staying in as requested. The other difference between the facilities is we own these facilities in Bridgetown. We do not own Middleton and we do not own Lawrence.
I don't care if we
But-
don't own the facilities in the rest of our county. Our citizens will not drive from Margatsville, buy an arena which they've supported since they were kids, to drive to Bridgetown to pay exactly the same price to use the Bridgetown arena. No matter if the county owns it or the towns own it. The towns are within our county and they're part of our makeup of our citizens that live in the East End.
Yeah, we can revisit.
Also, we have swimming pools that are being taken care of by the county. So for 6 months, you're saying you're running the arena, but those individuals are actually still working on payroll for the Bridgetown Recreation Committee. And that's where the thing is with me, is that I don't care if they're running the arena, if they're working the chemicals at the pool, if they're working the truck, the hub. It's still their area that wanted a personnel there. If the county's gonna pay for personnel, then we'll definitely fight for personnel in our East End to support the facilities that our East End citizens use. So that is where I'm gonna stand on that.
Thank you.
So we'll take note of that and double check that we have an adequate amount in our salaries budget to offset that. That is where that came from. So that we'll have a look at that for sure and report back on that one.
Okay, great. So we can move on.
All right, so the 2023-24 assessment changes. So the average dwelling has gone up from about 147,000 to 177,000 as a result of this assessment. This is not entirely factoring in cap. This is just average dwelling assessment. And the average total tax bill based on that dwelling assessment is about $1,824. Assessment peak, I think, is important here. We had a large increase in assessment this year. It's not expected to continue. We are likely to see some reductions in future years, which means reduced revenues, which would have to be offset using the tax rate, essentially, or changes to the budget, or changes to level of service. There's another number of options, but it is important to remember that this is an assessment peak, and it's not sustainable at this rate, and that comes from PBSC. So we had about a 12.7% increase in our residential and about 17% in our commercial. The other ones are fairly nominal, but still increases as well. So this is important, impact on the tax rates. So we have a tax rate of 1.025 per $100 of assessment. If we wanted to reduce that by 1 cent to 1.015, that would require, for the residential customers, a reduction of about $140,000 from the budget. Otherwise, the tax rate is relatively unchanged. And then for commercial, it's $6,900. We have a lot smaller base. That's why that number is a lot smaller. On the flip side, if we wanted to, increase commercial, say, by a penny, then we would gain approximately $6,900, $7,000 in additional revenues for the budget. So that's sort of what this slide means. It's just to put into perspective when you are deliberating that these are the items that are going to make an impact on the final tax rate. Into our mandatory contributions. So the education component is about $4.4 million. It's increased substantially over the prior year as a result of assessment. Most of the, or 50% of the rate is actually calculated based on assessment at a specific tax rate, and the remainder of the contribution is based on student enrollment, which I forecasted and similar to last year. So that's been factored in. The RCMP came in at a 6.04% increase, which is a substantial increase, smaller than maybe what we anticipated, which is good, but still a substantial increase to just over $3 million. Nova Scotia Housing, we haven't heard of any increase there. In terms of Nova Scotia Housing, there might be some other items on there, but we're leaving it status quo in the budget.
There's a question.
Question on the RCMP. Since we've never been told exactly who's going to pay back the back pay, do we have a solid figure on how much the back pay is?
We don't. We don't have any estimates. Last year's rate said it included some of it, but not an amount that it might have included, and we don't know who's going to be on the hook for it. In terms of planning for that, we got extra equalization money last fiscal in 22-23, and we have set aside $405,000 in reserve in order to deal with that when it does come, but we have no estimates at this time, and we have reached out to our contacts, and there's nothing really saying what is going to come our way, but we do have some money set aside for it to lessen the impact on the county when it does come.
All councillors would have received an email from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities yesterday or last night.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Indicating that there was a meeting with a federal assistant deputy minister, and there will be no money coming from the federal government with regard to retroactivity pay. And I think the manager of finance has just indicated that we have something earmarked there when we earn the amount, but we don't know the
But
amount.
if we don't have enough, my point will be is that it's going to be on the tax rate. We're going to be looking at our tax rate. All of a sudden, we got a bill for $1 million.
It could be unlikely, but I think it could be.
It's going to be put back to the tax rate. So my concern throughout this budget will be is that how much money can we put away to go with that $400,000 to make sure that we don't all of a sudden got to jump the tax rate increase because all of a sudden we get a back bill that we know that may be coming, more than likely coming. I don't work my household thinking that I'm going to put a bill off because it hasn't arrived in the mail. So I want to make sure that some of my debate on putting money in reserves is going to be on the fact is we know somewhere down the road somebody's going to pay the bill.
Yes, and I think maybe we could make contact with our folks in Halifax and see if they have any idea of what the amount might be.
Right.
Councillor Ansel.
I was going to save the question until later on with the RCMP breakout, but since we're having the discussion, so last fiscal year we budgeted for 2.8 million, but we only spent 2.1 year to date, or does that not count certain months in the fiscal year?
We're waiting for that last invoice.
Okay.
So that's
All
the
right.
last quarter invoice that we haven't received yet.
Okay, that was, all right. Perfect.
Yeah, it should be bang on.
So it will be, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. And yes, in regards to, we'll have more fulsome reserve discussions, but another thing to consider is what the operating reserve kind of is intended for. And so sticking some in there, definitely a prudent option, as well as there is some there to cover the taxpayer, and that can be replenished as well when we have further estimates. But right now, we have $405,000 set aside for that specific purpose. So the Annapolis Valley Regional Library, I made contact with them, and there is no increase, which is great, seeing as they provide a lot of services and programs in our communities. And the J-class roads as well has been included with no or minimal increase to that contract as well. So talking about budget pressures, these are all the items that staff have considered and factored into the budget. So inflation as of February 2023, this is the latest released by the province of Nova Scotia. It was 6.5% in Nova Scotia. Interest rates right now with, and I apologize, MFC, it's not called that anymore, but they're upwards of 6% right now for locking in debt. The deed transfer tax, we got a lot of great assessment revenues from the increase. However, our deed transfer tax has really dropped off. So we've decreased that about 600,000. So that's an impact that kind of offsets the amount of revenues we are receiving. Additionally, the equalization grant last year, it was budgeted at double. We did get a double payment for the equalization. It's going back to its normal contributions for the current fiscal. So that's a decrease in revenues out of our control as well. It was a significant increase in the King's Transit Authority cost. I know that will be a more bigger discussion in the budget deliberations. And then, of course, reserve replenishment. So we haven't really done reserve replenishment before. We had about 55,000 allocated to the Rec and Culture Reserve. That's about all we really had last year. Council voted to keep the tax rate the same and contribute about $525,000 to reserve, which was great. So this budget, in order to balance it with the expenditures and the revenues, the net amount we have allocated to reserve. So any changes to the budget will either mean, if we assume keeping the tax rate consistent, an increased contribution to reserve or a decreased contribution to reserve. But I can track that as you go through your deliberation process and let you know where we're at with that. Right now, we are sitting at about 490,000 in terms of replenishment. Rounded that to 400 to the capital, 90 to the operating. That's just the initial proposal. It will change as we go through the deliberations process, and our final budget might look quite different. So average capital spending, just put it into perspective for our reserves, just capital reserve and CCBF, which was formerly gas tax, about $3 million. Right now, the only contributions are $885,000 from CCBF. So this just shows the importance of our capital reserve replenishment in order to facilitate our future capital budgets. And then, of course, the timing of the HR and compensation review. It was not completed in time for this budget. It hasn't been reflected. There are requests, and staff will speak to those, but that was not done prior to the budget process. So in terms of reserve contributions, our capital reserve, the blue amounts here are the amounts that balance the budget. So those are the potentially changing amounts based on deliberations. That's just kind of how we broke it out. The 35,000 here includes vehicle replacement for our fleet. We allocated about 20,000 to start to think about what that looks like, to have the money in advance, rather than like last year where we debt financed the purchase of various vehicles. So this is just pre-planning for that. And then capital replacement for IT. IT assets, computers, hardware, servers have pretty short useful lives with the pace at which technology grows. So we've forecasted about 15,000 in there to go to the IT capital replacement for staff and council.
That's great.
The operating reserve, 38,500 to elections. So we took the cost of the District 3 as a basic hybrid and multiplied it by 11 districts, divided that by 4. Every 4 years there's an election. This is kind of a best practice in the industry. Every 4 years we would contribute that amount to save the tax rate spikes, essentially, in the year of an election, which can be upwards of 100,000.
Councillor Sheridan?
That is a nice addition for keeping it. So when we asked you for the reserve balance, will that be deducted off so we know our actual operating reserve balance without the elections in there? Or is that going to be included in the operating reserves?
It's included in the operating reserve now, but if this is the way we go, then we would be reporting that separately because it's technically a special purpose reserve.
Yeah. This is what I was wondering. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gunn?
Thank you very much. Quick question. But I want to go back to the slide before this one, and it was the interest rates. And one of the things that this and your conversation on your next slide was how much debt do we still have with the banks? Not, I don't mean that the government bank there, but we got rid of our, the overdrafts that we had. We had a lot of overdrafts here a couple of years ago.
Yeah, as of this March 31st, we had no overdrafts.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Hudson?
Maybe I missed this in your comments, Angela, but the 907,000 approximately that we got notice of yesterday that we received from the Substantial Services Growth Fund. That's not reflected in these reserve numbers.
It's not. That was kind of a last minute get it in before year end thing that we received on March 31st.
Yeah.
It's also, and I meant to mention this, the Deputy Warden brought this up with me as well, that it's not in the reserve analysis there. So do keep that in mind. $906,000 will be added to the capital reserve. That is where it's sitting. So there will be, and then yes, there's stipulated uses.
But it has to be spent by 2020.
It has to be spent by 2025, so of course next capital budget we'll be looking to that. And then its intended use is to support the growing population in Nova Scotia. So that's kind of the theory behind the capital projects that we'd be looking to support with that. And then we have our special purpose reserves. So one of the things that was important about separating the revenues with the expenses, it was our sewers. So our sewer revenue was not actually offsetting our sewer costs. We were subsidizing the sewer rate on the tax levy. So that has been rectified this year, and they're a balanced budget. The rates support the operation and support a transfer to the capital reserve. We kind of talked about this yesterday, and that supports the capital infrastructure replacement and major maintenance for that. So both Bridgetown and the county, their reserve transfers have increased a little bit. Typically we put $40,000 in Bridgetown, and $312,000 was what we put in last year for the county. They've increased a little bit, which is good news, and that's probably based on the 2% increase that was brought to council yesterday. And then street lighting as well. In the prior year's budget, typically the street lighting, it's same process. It sustains the operation, so the electrical costs, the maintenance, repairs and maintenance, all of that, and then the excess goes to the capital replacement of the LED street lights. That transfer wasn't included in last year's budget, so it kind of looked like we had a little extra revenue from the street lights, but we didn't really. So that has been reflected in here, and it's about $68,000, so it's a slight increase, and I think they have, and I could be mistaken, but around 5, give or take, years left in the LED streetlights for useful life.
Councilor Hansel?
The only question I have with the streetlights, are we noticing a big reduction in energy costs by switching to the LEDs? Do we know that? I'm just curious.
That's a good question. I would think we are.
We should.
And I did reduce, the costs this year for the electricity, so I would safe to say yes, but I would like to know what that number is myself, so good point.
Let's not get into the philosophy of stranded assets.
Well, you know.
So here are the forecasted reserves. This is in the sheet that is on the desk for you there. This includes, I included the potential surplus. I think it's worth mentioning here, there's a potential surplus transfer to both the capital and the operating that we will bring to audit committee. It is essentially up to council at that point. And then the other contributions are reflective of what is in the budget and what was on the previous slide. And then the withdrawals are actually from the capital budget. So that just kind of shows we're contributing, we're starting reserve replenishment, but we are using more than we are contributing. One to highlight there is maybe the county sewer reserve. The importance of the capital replacement, we have budgeted about $620,000 for capital improvements to the county sewer. So that just kind of puts that into perspective. As we get going with asset management, this is going to provide probably our best resource in terms of using replacement costs, forecasting replacement costs for our assets. So that would be the actual cost expected for the municipality to replace their asset, and annualizing that. And we would have a better idea of what is prudent for the municipality to be putting aside every year for future replacement of assets. We're not there yet. Hope to get there soon, but this just kind of gives an idea of where we are right now.
Councilor Connell?
So when I get that from the letter of intent, the old town of Bridgetown and the new community of Bridgetown has $10,278 left.
That's right.
Towards your parking lot.
There we go.
You knew where that was coming.
I was waiting for it.
You knew that was coming.
Councillor Sheridan.
So regarding the projected balance for 22-23, I see the 21-22 we discussed yesterday was a surplus of 1.5 million.
Yep.
So do you expect a surplus, or can you give us any indication of 22-23?
That is a great question. I've started that analysis, but I have not finished it prior to this. I don't expect the same level of surplus. I believe the 21-22 surpluses, a lot of that came from doubled up payments for equalization and other items like that. And that would include, I believe, the internet sale as well.
And would it also include the extra 500,000 we put in by keeping the tax or increasing the tax rate?
No, that is in the projected 22-23 balance.
Okay.
That is factored into the operating reserve.
So it sounds like there probably will be a...
There will be a contribution, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Whether it's the full 525, I would think it is, but I'm not close enough to give you the final verdict on that, but there will be some going to reserve in 22-23.
Okay, thank you.
Alright, so this kind of goes further to Councillor Gunn's question about debt. This is our outstanding debt. So it is pretty much with MFC. I'm not sure what they call themselves now, but for lack of that, I will call it MFC. And then we have the West Paradise debt is the Albert Rice loan. I'm not sure what we refer to it as typically, but that one has been authorized by the ministry, but is a private loan source. Additionally, the Bridgetown Wells, that is financed through Bridgetown Water. So I've included it here for our total debt figures. However, that is financed by the Bridgetown Water utility, and it is not impacting the tax rates. And then the line of credit. So that has about $2.5 million for the Upper Clements Park property. This includes the 1.3 for Gordonston. That includes the demolition from 22-23 capital budget. And then about $570,000 is for the administration building renovations from the 22-23 budget and the vehicle replacement. There's about $130 in there for vehicle replacement. So we are looking at some of these other items like these surpluses and such in order to see if we can take care of the 570. That's a relatively small amount to finance through debt, especially given that our overall budget's about 23 million. So, and staff are looking at that as an option, but it will also depend on what we do with the property and other items for the repayment of that.
Deputy Warden, please.
Just one of your debt balance, you did a maturity on the right.
Yes.
Most of those, it's repaid by that date. So is that, I'm looking at BT Wells in particular, that's the debenture maturity? So we have to go back to the bond market to refinance that in 2026, or?
I don't believe, no, that one looks like we're going to, yes, based on the number. They finance for 10 years at a time, and then we essentially refinance. So if it's a financing for greater than 10 years, then we will have to go back and deal with those rates. I'm thinking when I look at this, that is probably the only one that we will have to do that for. The rest of them should. Yeah.
If I may.
Councillor Gunn,
Thank you so
followed by
much.
Councillor Collins.
Real quick, and you said this line of credit will be paid off by, did you just say March when I asked you about what we owe the banks in the last question?
No, that was our overdraft. The line of credit is separate from overdraft. We have no overdraft, but yes, we do have a line of credit. My
I'm sorry,
apologies.
and that's what I meant, was the line of credit.
Yes, we do. Mainly for the
And
Upper Clements Park, and what we will do with that property will kind of dictate how we approach
So we're
repayment.
basically paying interest on this heavy interest on that right now.
We're paying, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Collins.
So under the debt balance, you show Bridgetown Town Hall Fire Hall.
Yes.
What does that mean, Town Hall Fire Hall?
Oh my gosh. That's a good question. These were ones that we had taken on. I don't want to exit the slideshow. I can look those up. I have all the documents for them. They did have one for town hall renovations, and that one's been paid off. I'm not sure what they did with this.
Because
With this debt item.
I'm assuming that those three items are on the Bridgetown area rate.
Correct.
And that adds up to 150,000. And in the Bridgetown area rate, debt repayment is at 95,333.
Yes.
The figures are different.
Yeah, so this is principal. This is the total principal remaining outstanding. The debt repayment is principal plus interest payments, annual debt and principal payments. Yeah, so that's the difference between the two. All right, so now we're gonna jump into the actual operating budget by cost center. The first one is governance, so this is council, warden, and elections. It's an overall reduction of about $5,700 here. Key changes, benefits were budgeted last year at the same rate as a full-time staff member. They're much lower than that, so that's been adjusted. There's a reduction to the IMSA. It went from 60-some-thousand to about 48,000 per that contract that we signed. This does include the elections transfer, and we did provide for $20,000 extra in the community grants for the TCTS request. And I think that was brought to council just this last month, so.
Page 14 in the budget.
Sorry. I can open and start that. So I'll take questions as we go. Clarifying questions about what's presented, how it's presented. But I'll say for the deliberating, I'm going to leave that to you guys to do potentially after when I hand it back to the warden. So I'm more for clarification questions for the understanding at this point. But I will take them as we go.
Councillor Answell, please.
So I just had a couple questions under the governance. So professional development, in 2023 we had budgeted 61,000 and we're budgeting for this coming fiscal year 59, but this fiscal year we spent 66,000. Are we assuming, or am I assuming, that it was one-time training that we had to do, or are we under budgeting something that we need to be?
So this would include some of the extra workshops that we did. In 2022-23, we did some orientation items and stuff like that. So that would include some of that. And just a reminder, we did go to theoretically a zero-based budget. So over-year comparison is good, but for that figure specifically, we determined how many people would be attending FCM based on the cost, approximate flight costs, approximate hotel costs. So we actually did look into that number and believe that that is sufficient for the identified training for the fiscal coming.
Deputy Warden, please, followed by Councillors Hudson and Connell.
So IMSA year 3 contributions,
Yes.
that's reduced to 40K because it's not a full year.
There was kind of a chart. There's a table in the agreement, and the first year was about 23,000. The next year was, I think, 68, and then it goes down to about 46 or 47,000. So we just adjusted it to the actual from that contract. I'm not sure why the contract is like that, but.
Councillor Hudson?
Yes, just for my clarification, in all of the pages, this one we're looking at and even subsequent ones, you have actual year to date. Is that to year end or is that,
That is
my
to
first question.
approximately March 26th to the 28th. That's kind of when I was preparing all of those. And that is everything that is in the GL as of that time.
So basically up till the end of March?
Pretty much, yes. There could be invoices outstanding. Quarterly invoices, we don't typically receive those until sometime in April. And our AP cutoff for the prior year is April 26th. So those are subject to change. But I will report on those to you when it's complete.
My next question had to do with external transfers. I see from actual year to date, 251,000, and the budget we got 335. Just curious as to what that increase represents.
So the $20,000 is for the TCTS. So
Yep.
this is the
Yep.
figure that includes all of your community grants. You haven't expended all of your community grants per the policies yet, so that's why the year-to-date number is less than the actual budgeted amount.
Councillor Connell, please.
No, Hudson asked my question.
Thank you.
Right. So page 15, we've got general government, and this includes corporate services. So instead of having all the revenues and the expenses kind of separated out, there was a number of items that impact the municipality as a whole. So these items have been defined as corporate services for presentation purposes. These would be things like the education contribution. That doesn't reflect a specific cost center. That is a mandatory contribution that the municipality pays. And the reserve replenishment doesn't necessarily impact a specific area. The IT replacement presented separately because it is in the IT cost center, but those two blue bubbles are the ones that will be in the corporate services budget. And then external transfers as a whole. So this would be our Lawrencetown contributions and our village rates. And I believe there is rec facility contributions as well for Middleton, Annapolis Royal, and Lawrencetown as well. All right, so Office of the CAO. So this is the staff reflected in this budget. We have the Strategic Initiatives Manager, Communications and Special Projects Officer. These are not new people, these are existing people. And it's an overall reduction in the Office of the CAO as a result of there was a line for strategic initiatives in prior years, $45,000 for physician recruitment. That was over and above the community grants, or the physician recruitment policy. And then $45,000 for the strategic plan last year. So those two one-time amounts have been removed for the current budget, and a reduction in travel costs required, and that's a result of changing the CAOs.
Deputy Warden, please.
So where does the funding for the medical assistance recruitment program show up now?
That is included in the external transfers line on the governance side. Yeah, so that's per the council policy.
So that's why we have the.
What line did you say it was?
It's on the external transfers.
Okay, thank you.
So the external transfers just facilitates anything that we are transferring out to a different agency, entity, government organization. That's essentially what an external transfer is.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Councillor Hudson.
Yes, again, on page 15, again, just maybe a little explanation on this change. The salaries and benefits, year-to-date 491, a budget of 386, which is a decrease of $100,000. Any explanation for that decrease?
Termination of CAO is the
okay.
result of that. All right. So moving on to the clerk's office. If you see a blue bubble on these charts, that is a new staff request. So that is how we will identify them. The blue indicates that, and I will let the executive team kind of speak to their request. So the only change really for the clerk's department is this new staff request for a senior administrative assistant.
Which page are we on?
Grade 15.
15 still.
And the blue box is in the presentation, slides of presentation. And this page.
Okay, I'm there.
Yeah, sorry, the blue bubbles, the staffing is included in the presentation, not the actual external facing budget document.
I don't know. Do you?
No, that's on the next page.
We're on page 15 at the bottom.
That'd be
Yeah,
all
it's
these
not on
pages.
This one is
Yeah,
right
it's just
here.
on this
Well,
one.
I'm here too.
Okay.
Typically, if I want to refer to something, it's up on the screen, so it's from the presentation, but I will try to give you page numbers to follow along in the actual budget document itself as well, but I'll refer to the presentation.
Councillor Sheridan, please.
So in regards to the clerk's office, so I'm assuming, I don't know how many staff are in there. Is it 3 or 4 staff plus the new one, or is it?
It's 2 staff, so we have a clerk and a records management coordinator.
right now, but then you're gonna add this additional.
One senior, yeah, that's the new request.
Okay. So it'll be 3 staff.
Yes, it will.
Councillor Hudson?
Yes, I'm down to clerk. And the budget change is $73,730, and you refer to the note 4 below, includes a senior administrative assistant to the clerk. Is that a new position?
Yes, if you look up here, on the screen here, we've got the clerk up here, and then the records management coordinator, so that's essentially Carolyn and Wanda, and then the blue here is the new staff request. So that would be a new position. It is an increase in a full-time equivalent for that department.
Okay.
Yeah, but that is reflected in the salary numbers.
I guess why I was asking that, I sort of thought that, there would be an administrative assistant to the CAO.
That's the clerk.
That is not requested in this budget.
Okay, Councillor Connell, please.
So does this reflect what the org chart is being presented?
It reflects all the input we've had into the org chart, yes. It's not finalized yet. Yeah, I guess that's all I can really say on that. These are new requests based on staff needs at the current time.
And yes, it was discussed with Mr. Walsh during his process.
Yes, but I've been told by our advisor that we just accept that report, that we do not have to implement it all in 1 year. We do not have to implement some parts of it. It's our decision if we want to put money in the budget for those things. So that was my question on, is it to do with, coincide with the org chart, which we haven't got yet?
These are identified by staff as the needs for the organization for the current fiscal year. Yes, we have put this into the HR and compensation review as staff requests. We don't have a final product for that right now. However, it is up to council in where they allocate the funds in the budget, and that's why we're presenting this and highlighting where our requests are.
And I'd like to say in the past 2 months, the high regard I had for the office of the clerk and the workload has increased greatly. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you, and I was going to mirror that thought by saying it's a position that needs to be filled. We need some help for these ladies, those staff.
Thank you.
Great. So the next one here is finance. This is the current structure, not the proposed structure. This is the current structure, and up in the presentation, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure what page it is in the presentation, I've got 2 yellow bubbles at the bottom here. That's for annualization. These staff already exist, but they were not included in their entirety in the prior fiscal. So I will say for new staff in this year, we're not including 100% of the year because we need probably 3 months, at least 3 to 6 months to hire. And there would be recruitment and stuff. So they're included at 50 to 75%. As the same was done in prior years. In this one, we had somebody on a leave of absence that returned. That was not accounted for in the prior budget. So that's what the increase is. This year is a staff coming back to their position. And then the customer service representative was a person we allocated in 22-23, accommodated within that existing budget as a result of going from 3 administration buildings down to 1. So the increased traffic and bringing building and planning services to the municipality, we needed some backup for our front counter. And for health and safety reasons, it's important that we have 2 people out there. That's just is what it is. So that's that one there. And that's why they are increases to the budget, but they're not actually new positions for this current budget cycle.
Just the 2 by each one of those, what does that indicate? 2 positions?
That's right. So customer service representatives, we had Phyllis, we have hired Heather. we have 2 out there, and then procurement, we had 2 full-time staff. One was seconding as our interim CAO, but he is in our budget.
Okay. Councillor Connell?
So what you're saying is when our intern CAO goes back to procurement, now we're gonna have 2 procurement coordinators.
And prior to him going to interim CAO, we had 2 procurement people.
So if we had it before, why is the increase of the salaries gone up?
Because the other person was on a leave of absence, and their full salary wasn't included last year. However, they have returned, so that is the annualization to their full salary. It's not the secondment to interim CAO that's the increase there. There was a leave of absence. Right, so the other increases here are our audit costs, and that was brought separately to council. It's a slight increase in our audit costs. However, in 23-24, we are going to RFP, so I anticipate seeing some savings in this line item in the future, as well as we are writing our own financial statements now, so that takes away from the amount of work that the auditors have to do. This was a larger audit cost because they took us on last minute, and it was a first-time audit, and first-time audits typically cost more.
Councillor Ansel?
I just, of course, whenever I see contracts, I like to ask
Professional
questions.
services, I'm sorry.
So
Professional services.
what contracted services do we do?
Oh, in finance,
Yes.
that is our amount to PVSC.
Oh,
so we
okay.
actually have to
All
pay
right.
PVSC for the information and the assessment that we get, and it's roughly for $445,000. And then also that is our licensing cost for SAP,
Okay.
which is about 45, give or take 47.
Okay, no, thank you.
But that's a good question. And I'm sorry, the audit can be seen under professional services in the budget document.
Councillor Hudson, please.
Yes, again, under finance, if you look at that little chart there, Director of Finance right at the top, is that a new position?
That was in the existing budget, that was in the prior year's budget, and it was council's wish to keep the director of finance, so that's why it's there.
Okay. So there is an increased cost.
So the money is there for the director.
Yeah, the money is there for the director, yeah. The increase is cost of living, it is the grid movements within the department of the existing staff, and then it is the annualization of the procurement coordinator that was on leave, and the one new customer service representative approved in the prior year.
Okay, so it's all there.
Councillor Connell, please.
So when we read last year's budget actuals, then it should show in
Number 6.
wages
Okay.
That's fine.
a certain amount of funding not spent.
Correct.
Because that position wasn't filled.
That's right. Yeah, we have in the 22-23 year, to get caught up with our financials, we have contracted Kevin Matheson as a CPA to help us get caught up because I am only one person. So Kevin Matheson has been helping us. That has been those funds that were allocated to the director, and we didn't have a director. Those have been allocated in partial to Kevin Matheson's cost to the organization. But when there is a director in that position, that will change whether or not we need, and as we get caught up with everything, which we almost are there, then we won't need those costs. So that frees up the director costs.
When we get caught up.
Yep.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Gordon, please.
Grid movement, could you define that term for us?
Yes.
You've used it a couple times.
Yes, grid movements. So there's pay bands and there's steps, and this is probably out of my realm of explaining, and it will all come in the HR and compensation review, but essentially people move steps. You know, you don't make the same as what you're hired on in day one. You've got a probationary period, you might move a step, that's what a grid movement is. Thanks. All right, so IT services.
Oh, could I Yeah.
Councillor
Back up.
Sheridan, please.
So the contracted services, you may have said, and maybe I missed it, it's 474,000.
Yes.
What did you say was included in that?
PVSC. We pay them almost 450,000. It's 445 and change, I think,
Wow.
that we pay PVSC in order to give us our assessment.
That's
And
a lot of
SAP.
money.
It is a lot of money, but yeah, that's what we pay the PVSC
That's what I
body.
thought I heard, but I just wanted to make sure that's what I heard. Okay.
It is what you heard.
Okay.
It was so shocking, you
Yeah,
didn't want
I
to hear it.
didn't want to hear it.
Yeah,
Councillor
didn't wanna
Gunn,
hear it.
please.
Thank you so much. A couple of years ago, and I know we're just getting caught up, but I haven't seen what our legal, and I wonder where that's going to be focused, where I'm going to see that.
There's a legislative services cost center coming up, and I will touch on it when we get to that.
That's
Is that
what our
okay?
legal services, because we paid a lot of legal services here.
That's right, yes, and we are in good shape for the current year. The last time I checked, there could have been an invoice since then, but we had about 81,000 that we had not spent, which is progress from prior years, so that's good.
Good. We'll touch on it.
Yes, but I will touch on it.
We'll get to it. Thank you.
All right, so IT services. So again, we had some grid movements, specifically the IT services manager. It was an assistant manager that departed, and this was brought to council, and it's being replaced with a manager. That advertisement is out right now. There's no new positions in this cost center, and the main changes are server licenses that we have to acquire, Microsoft Office 365. We use Office. That's kind of our go-to. That's our software. Even when I get it out of SAP, it doesn't come in the right format, so I use Office to get all of the reports, this whole budget, everything. We're currently working in Microsoft Office 2013. So there's a lot of features and collaboration, workflow. There's a lot of features that are available in Office now that we just don't have access to, but it would significantly improve our internal communications and our productivity as well. So that's about $15,000. I think there will be benefit to that. It will outweigh that 15. And then offsite security. So cybersecurity is always kind of a risk. This is also a contracted service to support our internal staff. This looks good for insurance purposes and all of those items. Cybersecurity, it's big now. So there's about $20,000 in there for that.
Councillor Connell, please.
So under IT, I see a budget change in the salaries of 32,000. So that's going to be what it's going to cost to replace the IT manager?
Part of it, that also includes the cost of living that we had discussed as well for existing staff, and the cost of benefits is in there as well, which is about 25% of your salary costs.
And change in title.
Yeah, and then the change in title, yes. It's closer to mid-20,000, 24, 25,000 for just the IT services manager.
And my second question is under materials and supplies.
Yes. That is the
Quite a
upgrade.
jump, $25,000 increase in just,
But
Yeah. So we had purchased Laserfeature. So part of that is $3,600 licensing for Laserfeature, which is our records management software. That's included in IT services. The $25,000 also includes the $15,000 I was just talking about with Microsoft Office 365. So us working in Microsoft Office in 2013, there's a whole bunch of new features. And that includes the server licenses as well. There's about $9,000 for server licenses that we require.
it's at the bottom of the page, wasn't it? Number 10.
Geez, we'd save
I'm just
a lot of
saying it's
money
quite
going
an
back to
increase.
ledger.
Please don't do that.
Councillor Enslow, please.
I know it's a large increase, but I just want to kind of add support to that. So with Microsoft 2013, they're soon going to turn off support for that program.
Yes.
So all other governments have done 365, which would allow us to have Teams and all this other cloud stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a one-time thing temporarily until the next 400 and whatever comes out. But I just want to say that it's a good upgrade, and we'll probably see it within workability of the staff.
so next year you're saying we'll see a decrease. Yeah, we should.
For Microsoft 365, I just got to put it out there, that is the annual licensing as opposed to buying the proprietary software. So when you buy the proprietary software, you're kind of stuck in that year.
Yeah.
So that's why we've had 2013, and then
Okay.
you have to purchase it. So the purchase costs more than $15,000. But you have to keep purchasing it for all the upgrades, and then they cut your support off. So 365 is typically the industry standard now,
Yeah.
because that gives you all of the features and the workability that you need, but it is a monthly cost based on users.
I hope that during the conversation we've just had from the last two speakers talking about 365 and Office and buying and cutting off, I hope that during that time I had on my face an expression that might indicate to you I understood what they were saying.
You covered well.
Who's next?
Can I add to that?
Oh, sorry.
As further explanation as well, Councilor Connell, we used to buy perpetual licenses. We used to buy a one-time license. It was in the capital budget under IT. We don't get to do that anymore. It's annual subscription fees. And so you're not going to see a decrease. We have to do it going forward by
Oh, I
subscription.
understood that.
So this is year one, and we're going to see those kinds of costs.
Yeah. Yeah, the only good news to that is that it's a pretty consistent
Yeah,
annual
yeah.
cost as opposed to your spikes in years where you have to buy proprietary items.
Where are we? Councillor Hudson.
Yes, I'd just like to back up to finance just and ask the brief question. Is there anything in there for the, I guess, the proposed new software?
Note that was removed from the capital budget, so that will be coming completely separate when our new CAO comes, and we will bring that back separately. All right, so human resources and legislative services. So these all fall under our Director of Legislative Services. So I kind of put them together on here. This is a new item in this budget. We're kind of doing a legislative services budget. So this is your legal, your FOI box, those types of services that all kind of fall under John back there. So the director has been split 60-40. 60% HR, 40% legislative services. There is a new staff request in the blue bubble there. It's for a legislative services coordinator. So a lot of Don's time now is taken up doing FOIPOP. This would kind of support all of these functions, but I will maybe let Don speak to that if necessary. Overall, it's a net decrease in the two from last year. So HR is a significant decrease. We're creating a new cost center for legislative services, but it's an overall decrease from the prior year. This is a result of the HR and compensation review. It was a one-time expenditure. We have removed it for the year going forward. There are funds to complete the HR and compensation review from the prior year, but it has been removed from this budget. So this is where we would hit on the legal costs. We feel comfortable in decreasing typically $200,000 for legal fees to $100,000. So we are optimistic that we are moving in the right direction and that in-house we're able to accommodate a lot of these items moving forward.
Awesome.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Insurance is the other increase. So touching on insurance really quickly, in the prior fiscal year, it wasn't budgeted at the full cost of insurance. So we had some catch up to do, plus our premiums went up 32%. So this is an important figure. It's a result of, we've had a lot of claims. So we had the water tower in Granville. We had hurricane-related claims. We've just had a number of claims in the past that have resulted in an increase, but the property increase was really substantial. And that just came from replacement values. Increased assessment kind of plays into that for replacement costs of property. Those kind of items have all resulted in about a 32% increase in our overall insurance costs.
That's insurance, that's all insurance, liability and facility and everything?
In this cost center, this is just the liability component.
Just the liability?
Yeah, just the overarching liability. When we get to fleet and facilities, you'll see fleet and facility insurance there.
Okay.
So the regional emergency management, there was a report, I believe, brought to council about increasing our current coordinator from half a position to a full position for regional emergency management. This will result in some additional town contributions. Sorry, this is on page 19 in the budget book.
And
We'll go back to the
have the towns of Annapolis Royal and Middleton agreed to the additional contributions?
I'll refer that one over to Dawn. She's been having the talks with them. Is that okay, Dawn?
So we did have a meeting early on in the development of this concept with the CAOs. We have endorsed it to their councils, and they are also in budget process just like us. The overall increase from that is around 16,000, 17,000.
Thank you. Councillor
Oh,
Connell.
sorry,
please.
that's the overall revenue.
Total, okay.
Councillor Connell, please.
So if they don't support this initiative, then we don't put it full-time.
Yeah, that's it.
I'll refer back to Dawn.
I would say we would have to bring a decision back for consultation. Certainly, we're not anticipating that there will be a problem, but if it doesn't receive agreement from the towns, then we will have to have further discussion at this table.
So, question?
Please, Councillor Vaughn.
So would it be that this new position would entail us splitting the cost of the REMA full-time, a third, and a third?
No, but I'll let Dawn speak to that.
Unfortunately, no. The agreement that was ratified was based 50% on uniform assessment, 50% on population, over and above a minimum contribution of $3,500. So all three municipalities start off taking the $3,500 per unit off budgeted amount. The residual is divided up on the formula of 50% uniform assessment, 50% population. So we end up contributing on that residual around 87%.
Yeah, 87%. That's a nice round number. That's just not right.
All right, so building and fire inspection services. This is the table here. There's some cost centers here under protective services that our manager also manages under community development services as well. So you'll see the manager twice. We don't have two managers. This is the same manager both times. And then we've got the building officials and the administrative assistant to support the building and fire inspection services. So this budget includes a reduction in professional development. This is a result of extra was put in last year when hiring the building officials, that we didn't know what training would be required for certifications, etc. We ended up getting great candidates. They had a lot of their training. We can reduce the training budget comfortably to normal rates at this time, so that has been removed.
What page are you on?
I'm sorry, 20.
20.
Okay, I know you talk fast, but I can't flip as fast.
Angela,
At my desk here.
Angela, we'll be going back to the bottom part of 17 and 18. We haven't broached on that yet, have we?
That's corporate services?
Well, this is corporate services, and did we go through this?
We did.
We did.
We didn't do the corporate
I didn't.
services on page 16, did we?
I thought I was working, that's what I was working on.
Oh, not 16.
Let's finish building and fire inspection, and then we'll pop back to corporate services.
You blink.
Yeah, 18.
You blink.
We never touched on 18.
I'm
The last of 17 and 18.
Here, I thought I was talking slower today.
God.
They're gonna have to say, flip the page.
So we are going back to 18?
No, we're doing,
After, we'll do building and fire inspection that we started here on page 20, and then we'll go back to corporate services.
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Feel free to just tap my desk here. Okay, so building and fire inspection services, the yellow here for these are the building and fire inspectors, or officials, sorry, they're officials, aren't they? That's an annualized cost. So the full cost wasn't included in last year's budget. There was some time that we would require for hiring and recruitment. So this is just annualizing that cost.
I'm just waiting.
Yeah.
So I see 3
Yeah.
inspectors. Was there 3 new?
No,
Two new, and then a title change, I guess, for our chief building official. Ish, something like that.
And two new is no relation to the fellow from Thailand whose name is Yu.
That was that.
Yes, that's all.
So there's still 4, correct?
Correct.
Still 4, yes. Just one has a new title.
Yes.
Okay.
What's the new title?
All right. If
Must
we're
be Russell.
okay with it, we'll head back to page 17 in the budget document, corporate services.
Page 17?
Yes.
Bottom.
Bottom of page 17 is where it starts.
Yeah.
So this is all our general revenues, general transfers. A lot of it's kind of mandatory. We don't really get to determine a lot of it, so I didn't spend a lot of time on it, but I can take some questions here. It includes all of our taxation revenues, payment in lieu of taxation. This would be other government properties that they own in our county. They do pay us a grant in lieu of. There's some that aren't grants, they're payments, so kind of used interchangeably in this document. Area rates, these would be our Village of Lawrencetown area rate would be included in here. Fire capital, I believe, is included in here in the area rates. Our unconditional grants, this is equalization here with the farm acreage and HST offset grants that we get, and then other revenues that are generated by us, and I would have to pop that open further to go into details. And then our external transfers there, that is the village rates that we collect and remit to the village. Interest on short-term borrowing, this is another issue from last year's budget, is we only budgeted $12,000 even though we were paying over $25,000 a month on the line of credits. At that point we had the internet one, which has been paid off in full, and then the Gordonston one. So this is reflecting what we expect for interest for the current year. So it looks like a substantial increase. It probably would not have been an increase if it was budgeted last year. And then the education contribution, we were slightly under budgeted from the prior year for the education. So it's a $418,000 increase. This is based 50% on our uniform assessment, which uniform assessment has increased substantially with all the other assessments in Nova Scotia. And then it is based on student enrollment. So that is how Middleton and Annapolis Royal kind of get factored out of that contribution. And then you'll see the operating and capital reserve fund replenishment. These are the blue bubbles that showed up in the previous slides. This is how I balanced the budget. So a municipal budget, typically your revenues equal your expenses. This is the amount that technically would have been a surplus, but it is for reserve replenishment, earmarked for that. So those are those two lines. So they are subject to change based on how deliberations go.
Question.
Councillor Gunn, please.
Thank you very much. And it's real simple. The payment in lieu of taxes, that's down. So that's it? They just said, no, this year we're only going to give you that much money.
No, an item was double budgeted last year in revenue. So it's actually the same, but Bell Alliance contribution was in twice in last year's revenue number. So that's the difference.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Deputy Warden.
Simple as that.
I was looking for a definition of uniform assessment because there's a bunch of other assessments there, and what I got was a bunch of PDF files that I'm not going to read more than 3 search things, so I was trying if you could give me a good uniform assessment definition. Stick you on the spot.
Very new concept for me. I believe it includes adjustments to normalize it because there's a lot of assessment that's maybe exempt, and there's a lot of assessment that isn't classified as our typical residential or commercial. It might be government-owned properties. It might be something. I'm looking to the crowd to see nods or head shakes here. That one I might want to get a better answer back to you, but essentially it's to normalize the overall assessment and compare apples to apples across all of the municipalities in Nova Scotia.
Okay, maybe I'll look down more than 3 search.
I will help you on that and get back to council. I think that's an important concept and I should probably learn it as much as you guys should. So yes, I will commit to that.
it's going to be read.
Right. So let me find where we are here.
We're at the bio.
We are on page 20 again. For bylaw enforcement, it's called bylaw enforcement. I put bylaw and animal control together because the same staff service both cost centers. So we've got our manager of protective services and our bylaw and animal control officers. We have two of those. No new staff increases here. The professional services have increased for bylaw. This is a result of items that we have going through the litigation process. So this is just ensuring that we have the costs to cover those items, and it would be bylaw violations, essentially. And then for animal control services, we actually have a decrease in that overall cost center of providing that service.
Councillor Gunn, do you have any comments on animal control?
Oh, my,
I was waiting.
well, so we built this lovely new facility up there, and I've never seen what that facility has cost us. We have no idea the amount of money that we've put into that facility, other than we bought it for $190,000 in that neighborhood. And I know we've put a lot of money in it. And I've asked, and I heard one time somebody told me that it was $40,000, and I laughed.
No.
And I'd really like to know where that number is reflected somewhere in our budget somewhere, or if nothing else, in our audit when it comes. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll leave it there. You don't have to
Okay.
answer it, 'cause
All
you
right,
don't.
yes. Well, I'll look into that more, but
Thank you very much.
no problem. Right, so now we're on to page 21 of the budget document. This is our RCMP. The increased cost to us is $171,000. It's a mandatory contribution, and we kind of talked about the retro. We have $405,000 set aside. We have reached out to all of our contacts, including contacts in Halifax, and we aren't getting straight answers on this. This is actually something that goes through the AMERS network kind of frequently. Does anybody know what's happening with this? We're all curious, but none of us have the answers yet. But as we do, we will prepare and plan and brief council as we do have information.
Councillor Hudson.
What are the external transfers under RCMP?
That is the court security. I'm going to look down here. What else is with court security? There's another item in there. Corrections, yes. Corrections.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Hensel.
So I'm assuming that is a mandated percentage, is it? Okay.
We just get the bill.
Okay, perfect, good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for good with that.
All right, still on page 21, we've got fire services here. So it looks like our area rates have significantly increased. This includes our hydrant rates, where we collect a hydrant charge that we in turn pay the water utilities for the use of the water that goes through the hydrants. So this is per our UARB order. We have two options for calculation. We did it the exact same as last year, no rate change proposed. It looks like a significant increase in the revenues, but that was because only half the revenues were included in last year's budget. So it's true. There's no rate change, but there are more revenues just based on the change over the last year. Not in our actual collection though.
Last year, the provincial government indicated that it was offering medical assistance in, was it 12 or 21 different cancers encountered by fire department people. And the provincial government indicated that it was paying these charges for the first year, but after that it would be a municipal responsibility. Do we know, is that in 23, 24, or 24, 25?
Okay, I'm looking at our protective services staff, and it looks like it'll be not in this fiscal year, but potentially next fiscal.
Thank you. Deputy Warden, Councillor Connell.
So your increase in area rates, that's just for the water through the hydrants? That's not our hydrant capitalization that goes to our water utility?
It includes both. That's the full hydrant rate that we levy per the UARB board order and then give to the water utility for the water use.
Okay,
So
so
that would include operation capital components, all of the above.
there's another line down here where it
Yes.
goes to the water utility?
Yes, there is. I'm looking at the change in. Yes, external transfers, I believe, would be to our different funds. So that would go to our water utility.
Okay.
There's about 412 that we collect. The levy keeps 3% for an administration fee to cover staff time, and then the remainder is remitted over to the utility.
And then cost recovery, I see it in a number of places. Is that internal cost recovery or external cost recovery or?
Thank you. Yes, that's actually the very next cost center that will kind of go over that more, but it is an internal cost recovery. So we're not recovering from an external source. That is how we're taking these centralized budgets and allocating them out to the service areas. The reason for doing that is so that we get a good idea of the cost of service. How much does bylaw enforcement cost us as a municipality? And then that can help us make decisions whether we provide services in-house, contract, that kind of stuff for those types of decisions. So that's the reasoning behind the cost recovery.
Councillor Connell, please.
In previous years, we've had, I won't say difficulties, but we've had, when the town of Middleton extended in partnership with the county to extend the water from the community college across Junction Road to Tetracan, they installed fire hydrants without us knowing. The county our county stood ground and said, shut them off. So our residents didn't ask for them. So our residents don't pay for them. So they shut the water off. But we have the same situation going up Gates Mountain Road. When Middleton Town Reservoir was an open reservoir at the base of the mountain, they installed fire hydrants more for flushing their lines than fire services. But the citizens are being rated highly for the cost of those fire hydrants in the sum of $500 or $600 per year on their tax rate. A letter was sent to this county from the citizens of that area, was asked why can't they have those fire hydrants shut off the same as we did across Junction Road. Is that something that we would have to write to the URB? Or is it a decision that council would take a stand on? Because they just feel they're being taxed separately for something outside of the town limits. And I can honestly tell you, the fire rate that I pay at the restaurant rate in the town limits was less than what our citizen was paying on the outskirts of the town. So definitely, and I went to the town, they couldn't tell me what the rate was because they said it's all included in their fire service rate. And they wouldn't separate it out to identify what they were actually paying. But I know that the bill on the citizen that lives on the outskirts of Gates Mountain, outside the town limits, pays more for a fire hydrant than I do inside the town, which is disgraceful.
I'm going to note that. I don't have an answer for you right now, but it is something that we can look at. Sorry, Jim, you want to add to that? Thank you.
You raise a good point, and I've raised that point with all our water systems. When we're doing our assessments right now as a requirement by the Department of Environment to report, and I want to know from our systems where the extent of fire protection is. So even if we say we have fire protection in Bridgetown, how much do we cover to deliver the flow out of those hydrants? To your point, Councillor, yes, that should be looked at, and if it's not warranting the delivery of fire protection that's meant for flushing, it should be removed.
Yeah, And that would be combined for our rate proposal when we do go back to the UARB, because I believe we are due to do that ASAP. So it's definitely something that we will make sure we consider and look at. And
Well, I know the resident has not paid the fire rate on his tax bill for the last year, and he says he will not pay it again this year. And I've already checked, and his property won't win the tax sale until it adds up to the price of his assessment.
yes.
So he's safe for another couple of years.
He's safe for a couple of years.
But it
yeah.
is a very frustration that citizens in our county is being charged more than a resident, which lives within the town limits.
Yeah, and we can look at that, and I know our hydrant rates are based on assessment, which isn't necessarily the industry standard anymore or best practice. So we'll definitely note that to look at it and see if there's a different way that we can be calculating these in the future. All right, so page 22 in the budget book, we get into municipal operations. Municipal operations is huge, so I'm going to kind of piecemeal it. It doesn't follow the budget document as much here. I wanted to address the staffing component of it first. I think everybody's aware there's union negotiations happening where that's kind of an off the table topic at the time. So this is our non-union staff, with the exception of the annualization of a position for the heavy equipment operator. This was approved and hired last year, not fully included in the budget, so that's what that is for. Beyond that, these are our non-union full-time staff at the top here, and there is a request for a new position for a junior engineer. Yes, and there's no other union staff proposed, so there is no expected changes to that for this budget cycle. All right. So
I'll leave that till later, thanks.
So fleet and facilities, I kind of beat this to death already. Fleet and facilities, new cost centers. This is just a management thing to pull it all together so that one person is managing all of our fleet. Hopefully we get some economies of scale or some efficiencies by that. But this is the estimate. Vehicle insurance increase is about $21,000. We purchased a number of new vehicles last year. We expected this premium to increase. We've gone through updated, we did a very detailed update on our insurance policy this year to make sure everything is on it, and that is the result, including the 32% increase in premium. Vehicle replacement contribution, I kind of talked about this when we talked about reserves. This is just to get something started for vehicle replacements. Typically a vehicle, 5 to 10 years in general you get out of a vehicle, like a pickup truck, say. So that's not really something that we'd want to finance through debt. So this is kind of a strategy in order to be better prepared for the cyclical replacement of our fleet in the future.
Councillor Ansel, please.
I don't know if we skipped it or didn't, I don't know. So under the centralized fleet for revenue,
yes,
it says cost recovery, 180,000. Is that from selling vehicles, or what is that?
That's our internal cost recovery.
Oh, that's that. Okay,
So that
sorry, yep.
it's represented as expenses in the service areas, and it's offset by this revenue here. Yes,
No.
sorry. And that's just to distribute the cost to the other cost centers and service areas.
It's good. I just know it's a
Perfect.
different term, so
Yeah.
sorry, never mind.
Not a problem. And then the facilities side of things, we've got an overall decrease in the facilities budgets. This is due to property sales, vacant properties, those types of items. We did do a thorough insurance review on our facilities and our properties, and we have adequate insurance on everything. It did cost us a little bit of extra for the vacant properties, just because it requires daily checks and extra, signage and stuff like that for our insurers who insure those facilities. But there was a substantial increase to the overall insurance costs associated with facilities.
Councillor Connell, followed by Councillor Hudson, please.
So I just see the salaries and benefits for 23 was 41,609, and this year $500. So where is that showing?
Our public works staff manage all the facilities, so it's allocated in public works, but we need some basis for allocating it to the facilities, so we need some actual operational costs. The costs for the people themselves are included in the Public Works Administration cost center. We just didn't have a basis, like with the facilities and the changing facilities, how much of a person do you allocate to a facility? So that's why that's not included in there. It was underutilized in the past as well, but the cost for the people are all still there.
Wait a minute, where is that?
Councillor Hudson, please.
Yes, just in the, again, under fleet, the $20,000 replacement, that's not going to be really adequate, is it? Just because I believe last year we replaced quite a few of the vehicles. Okay. And my other question had to do, has there been any consideration given to leasing instead of purchasing? So I know earlier you said that there's $470,000 in the operating account for the past vehicle replacement, right? Which we're paying interest on, and so on and so forth.
There's about $130,000 for the fleet replacement. The other amount was for the administration building. So there's about $130,000 that we have on our line of credit for vehicle replacement, and yes, we are paying interest on that. In terms of leasing right now is probably not an optimal solution for a municipality. There's always a built-in interest rate. And typically when you calculate it backwards, it's extravagant. It's typically more than what you would get if you were to borrow directly and purchase a vehicle. However, we do have those conversations for purchase versus lease. I know we didn't buy all brand new vehicles last year, so that impacts it as well. Sometimes the cost of a used vehicle versus the cost of leasing a new vehicle. The other component of that is insuring that vehicle. And this is from my past experience analyzing these. You know, you might get a ding like this, and then you're responsible for certain fees or something like that. Typically, work trucks aren't how we would treat our personal trucks. Not that we treat them poorly, but work trucks take a heavier beating than a personal vehicle would. So that is factored into that decision as well. But we do consider it, and if it makes sense, it would be something that we would proceed with, definitely.
Better fleet, put a lot of kilometers on it.
Yes, the kilometers is another one.
It's high.
Yeah, usually it's a lease to own most times.
Yeah.
Next.
Yes, just to speak to the other point, $20,000 is not enough for fleet replacement. We popped this in to start somewhere. We have to start somewhere, and the overall contributions to reserve we could scrounge up from this budget was about $490,000. That's probably not adequate as well, but we are starting somewhere, and we're starting to think about it, and as we go with asset management, we'll be able to objectively justify all of these reserve contributions in the future.
Okay, we're on page...
Good question. 24.
Transportation services.
Okay.
All right, so Public Works Administration, again, this cost recovery down here, about $58,000, that was a different way of calculating them. And the fleet and facilities have been removed from the Public Works that were typically there, so it didn't make sense to go there. The fleet is also housed under transportation services, so we're already capturing the cost there. So that's why that's a decrease. It's not a tangible dollar decrease. Roads, we have a shift from contracted services to materials and supplies. This is a result of doing our own road patching, etc. Jim can speak better to that. But so we've reduced the contracted services for a typical contract that we would have and increase our supplies so that we can provide that service.
Councillor Connell, please.
So under the Public Works Administration, in the salaries, that is money in there for the new position for the junior engineer?
Yes.
Yes.
And with all Public Works staff, there's an allocation of their salaries that goes to the water utilities because they work in them, they support them, and as well the sewer, which we'll see when we go into that section of the budget as well.
Councillor Gunn, please.
Thank you so much. And back to kind of beat on Councillor Connell's question there. This junior engineer we're going to hire, is he actually going to be an engineer? Is he going to have some training as an engineer, sir?
He will be a graduate engineer. We're hoping we can get a junior person. What I mean by junior is somebody that doesn't have their professional status. Currently, when you graduate from an engineering program, say at Dow or UMB or UDM, you have to work 4 years under a licensed professional engineer to gain your certification. So I'm hoping we can get somebody in. We can train them on all our systems, on all our facilities, on our operation. So by the time they become a professional, they're ready to roll in.
Thank you.
When this person graduates,
Yes.
is that person a PN?
No.
Or that's at the end of the 4 years?
Right.
What about the ring?
The ring is a ceremony that I'm not supposed to speak about.
But that's at the end of the
You get
university.
your ring before you graduate.
Okay.
Okay, but you do not get your professional status and you cannot log into the Canadian system or provincial systems without working under somebody.
That makes it awfully difficult if you see someone with a ring.
Sure.
And you don't know if he's a PN, you don't know whether to look down your nose or look up in admiration.
You knew that was coming. Something like that, anyway.
Anyway, so that's what it'll be, is somebody from the school. And that's my answer. Thank you very much.
Succession planning.
Right?
That's right, we have succession.
Street lighting on page 25. So I kind of discussed this before. This is a net zero budget. We collect rates, we cover the operation, we transfer to reserve for capital replacement. So any changes in the operation is just going to impact the transfer to capital reserve.
Can we go back to roads?
Sure.
I know some subdivision have paved rates for paved areas. In this particular one, is there anything there about the cleaning of the snow removal? Where do I find that?
I'm going to refer to Jim on that one. Is that something we're contracting? Would that be taken care of under contracted services?
That'd be a contracted services
Yeah.
with the province and other contractors that we have to provide that service.
Okay, so the total that's there is, there's a budget change of $60,559?
Yes, and what that reflects is us doing, if you remember this year, we started doing a lot of our own plowing.
Okay.
And also with the capital budget council approved for me, allowing me to do my own patching work and things like that throughout the county and buy some equipment so we can do that.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for indulging me.
Right. So I think we can jump down on page 25 to King's Transit Authority. We receive these municipal contributions from Town of Middleton, Town of Annapolis Royal. There's actually no agreement, so it's kind of just status quo on that. And then the contracted service. So we under budgeted this, and I brought this, it was about $40,000 for the prior fiscal, and I brought this as a report to council to get approval for the remaining contract for 22-23. So $39,000 was an impact from last year, and then the difference is 60-some was the impact for this year. But it is a substantial increase of about $91,000 on the taxpayers in the current fiscal.
Councillor Gunn, please.
Thank you so much. And on the other municipal contributions, they're actually kicking in, because I was always under the impression that Annapolis didn't kick in anything for King's
That's not
Transit.
true.
They do send us a little bit of money. I want to say Town of Middleton sends us $20,000 and Annapolis Royal sends us $5,000.
Thank you.
Right. Brings us to page 26 for environmental health services. And this is our solid waste is our garbage recycling. And then sanitary sewer, we've got our two systems, Bridgetown and County. So for solid waste, we see an increase in the contract price, but it is also offset by some cost savings, specifically in the hazardous waste area, waste calls. We're getting an increased level of service for this increase. We did discuss this in a closed session, so this is reflective of what we did propose in that closed session. Additionally, since that closed session, our contract rate was going to go up to 179, I believe, or 180 per metric ton. So we were going to see a cost increase anyway. So this actually results in some savings by taking the increased service levels and decreasing our costs for hazardous waste and other services that we provide. Jim?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one other thing. Speaking with Valley Waste this morning, we're continuing to work with them on packaging up our per ton agreement, because they, if you remember from our closed session, we talked about the services that they were going to provide to us. We're also looking at how do we reduce our tonnage as comparable to other members of the Valley Waste family. And they're looking at that, and I suspect over the next week or so, I will have further discussions with them on that, realizing our EFR contract expires in August. So, we'll have to figure that out.
Give everybody a burn barrel.
Public environment.
Yeah, that's not the So Bridgetown Sanitary Sewers, we did discuss this a little bit yesterday. Church Street and Carlton Street are billed per the Annapolis County rates. This is something we can look at, but it won't be ready for this budget. However, I have pulled the revenues out for the church, for these residents or for these properties, and brought them over to the Bridgetown Sewers system, because that is the system in which their sewage goes into. So that's where the revenues need to be to support it. So that's the large increase of $162,000 in revenues. A lot of it is due to adding Church Street and Carlton Corner revenues where they need to be. This does include the 2% increased rates that were proposed yesterday. And this results in an increased reserve transfer. As I said, it's typically $40,000 that we just give to Bridgetown Sewer. It's now upwards of $100,000. I'm turning my page here. $123,000. So that better supports our capital infrastructure. And as we go with forecasting our rates, we're going to look at capital replacement, more sophisticated, and we will be able to ensure that that is sufficient. The increased salaries here is just an increased allocation based on the time Public Works spends on the sanitary sewer facilities. So that is why that has increased. It's overall, this is sort of why I broke the staffing out as a whole for Public Works, because they support a lot of cost centers, so it's harder to see where their salaries are. But that is why this is an increase. It isn't actually a new position or anything. It's just a distribution of where their salaries are costing.
So how much people do we have in there?
Where are we? Deputy Warden, please.
We've got a $162,000 increase in the Bridgetown sanitary sewer, and that's just a transfer from our Annapolis sewer.
Yeah, about 156,000, I want to say, approximately, is the increase as for Church Street and Carlton Corner, and then the remainder is the 2% increase on fees.
Where would I find the corresponding decrease in the Annapolis sewer?
It is actually reflected in the line on page 27. No, it's not. I'm sorry. Page 28. In the user fees here, it is actually still an increase in the overall revenues for the county, but that amount has been reduced from the actual rates. It was upwards of 1.2 million and change, and that's come down to 1.159.
Oh, like our actual year-to-date.
Yes. Oh, not in the year-to-date.
Budget change.
The budget change, yes.
Thank you.
So for the county sewers on page 28, it's the same logic. There's a reduction in the salary allocation just based on the Public Works time and the estimates of time spent on the sewer systems. And it increases our reserve transfer to 394 from 312 the prior year. So this is good news. I'm not sure that it's enough, but it's definitely going in the right direction for that.
Councillor Ensel.
I just noticed under the county sewer that it says total Bridgetown sewer. Just
My templates.
Okay, no, good.
Copy and paste the total line.
No, it's all good.
That was my, yeah. I think there's something else in a heading somewhere that the deputy warden pointed out as well. I copy my headings and my total
It's all
lines. All right, so page 29, we've got community development services. We have outreach in here. That's tourism outreach, community outreach. Kind of falls under the CAO at the time, but in terms of service provision, I think it probably fits here, so that's why you'll see this here for outreach, but it is its own cost center. So here's the staff, the Director of Community Development, this is vacant. Our manager here is the same one that was in building. It's the same position. We have 2 municipal planners and we have 2 GIS technicians. Last year, there was a half-year allocation for a GIS technician as succession plan. They've been hired and this is the annualized cost of it because now we have them for the full year. There is $81,000 for contracted services offset by a transfer from reserve in revenues for the planning and development. This is the carry forward of our countywide plan. It had not been included before in the operating budget. It was in the capital budget. Plans aren't actually capital expenditures, so this is just carrying forward those expenses. So when I report to you, you'll know why the expenses are what they are. But it's a net zero impact to this year's levy because it was a previously approved project.
Councillor Conlon, please.
So in the GIS technician 2, we were told, which encouraged us to hire the second person, was that the first person was going to go on 50% time. Is that the case, or all of a sudden now we're paying 2 full-time GIS technicians?
There's been no announcement, so we have to budget at what it is currently. So it is for 2 full positions at this time. Do we expect that in the future for it to reduce? Yes.
Training, succession.
Councillor Gunn, please.
Thank you so much. I'm very glad to see that, because I've looked in a lot of these places, and I always look at professional development to see that our staff are taking courses and one thing or another. And I actually see that this budget, what we had budgeted in there, somebody's been using. It's a wonderful thing. So our staff's getting trained. Learning along the way. Good.
We are. The professional development does include travel. A lot of professional development since COVID is online.
Sure.
So you will see a little bit less spending because of the, per kilometer or meal or hotel or accommodations is lower. But yes, people are taking courses.
I'm glad to see that some departments are using it. Thank you.
Councillor Hudson, please.
Yes, I just want to go back to salaries and benefits, and I like to work off of actual. Actual 360,000, and now the budget is 564,000, which is a $200,000 increase. Is that increase related solely to the GIS?
Director. No, there's a vacant position for director that's included in there, but it wouldn't be reflected in the actuals because we're not actually paying a director right now. So that's why our actuals are low.
But it's in the budget.
But it's in the budgeted amount, yep.
Okay.
So the budgeted amount is for how many people?
It is for 2 JS, 2 planners, the manager of community development, and the director of community development. 2, 4, 6.
So that should be a blue box, the director of community development.
No, that was included in last year's budget. So it's not a new position. It's included in this year's budget as vacant because that was council's wish to have directors, so we kept it in the budget. But it's not a new position. It was included in last year's budget.
So where does that each person?
When did council direct it to be?
Mentioned. It was not directed by council. There we go.
So it should be a blue box. because.
It was included though, so it's not new. It's not new to the budget. That was a position that existed and was filled.
Okay, no,
And
we'll discuss that when we go into deliberations.
Okay. I have, you said there were 6 on this page for positions?
yes.
So we found a director, 1 for director, 1 for outreach, 1 for manager, 2 for planner, and 2 for...
Outreach has its own cost center. So in planning and
Okay,
development,
yes,
this specific
yes.
cost center, yeah,
You're
just
right.
6.
Yes, yes. It's ding, 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 yeah. I did see
Linda,
that.
do you want to?
If I may, I'm a 2 for 1 deal.
2 for 1.
Yes.
2 for
So
1.
my position here also shows up in building inspection, so
Yes.
you get me twice.
Yeah, as the same person.
Yes.
Same position.
It's not a different body, you just see me bouncing around.
Sounds good.
We get a good deal.
All right, so page 30 is where we're going to see the outreach budget. The increase in strategic initiatives, this includes a community events guide. So we're kind of doing a rushed version accommodating in this year's budget, but this is to accommodate the community events brochure that used to go out before COVID and stuff like that. It's kind of a tourism initiative to attract people to the many parks we have and what's going on in the county. It's probably a good outward-facing resource that council has for their residents.
Councillor Connell.
So again, following Dave Hudson, to year end, we paid out $39,000 in salaries. And this year we're budgeting 101.
The year-to-date requires an adjustment. So their salary is going to a different cost center, and I haven't processed all of year-end yet. So there is a journal entry that's going to happen, and it will be almost bang on with the prior year's budget.
So obviously she's being paid out of her, he or she, a person is being paid. So where is it gonna show the deficit? Because their pay must be being paid out of some cost center this year.
Yes, I can check on that. I'm not 100% sure. I don't see HR sitting in here. I think it was under the CAO previously, and then it switched to its own cost center. So it might be a reduction to the CAO salaries and benefits line, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, our payroll, we kind of talked about this before, our payroll is manual. So it's processed through ADP, and that does like the money end of it, but it doesn't automatically update in our GL. So these year-to-date numbers are what I had in the GL as of March 26th, but there will be an adjustment, and this is one person, so that won't be substantially full budget. This will be used to its full budget.
Good.
All right, so sticking on page 30, we've got recreation. Recreation's another one that kind of falls under various directors, and it's kind of broken up. So I've pulled the staffing related to recreation out in this chart here. So we've got the Director of Legislative Services. That director oversees this. That is Dawn, but she is accommodated in a different cost center. She's in HR and Legislative Services, but this is the kind of structure of it. So what we would see here is the Recreation Coordinator.
Oh, okay.
And then the new request is for an active living coordinator, which is offset by a grant from the province for active living.
Almost what?
Yeah. Yes, please, Dawn.
So what I'm asking is, this really changing the remote coordinator to 100%? Currently, the person who is remote coordinator is split 50% remote, 50% recreation. So by changing remote to full-time, we would keep the 50% allocation for the position that previously existed and apply for the province's MPAL program, which is going to be about $25,000 to $30,000, which almost provides the other 50% of that position.
Excellent.
Councillor Connell, please.
So again, if the towns don't agree on paying the portion of the remote position, then I would not vote for our county to pay 100% for a remo position to satisfy the towns. So we wouldn't need that position. So
Yeah, and we'd have to reevaluate that based on the conditions of the grant. I'm not sure if it requires a full-time position in order to be eligible for the grant, but we'd have to look at that on a case basis for sure.
another new position.
And then various part-time positions here. It's decreased from the prior year. We used to have lifeguards and everything out at Raven Haven. Those have been removed. We're not providing that level of service there. So this would be our canteen staff. I think there's about 4 part-time positions allocation.
For the summer?
For the summer, yes. Yeah, and pretty much for Raven Haven.
All 4 for Raven Haven?
Pretty sure, yes.
Wasn't
Yes.
some in Bridgetown though for after school, active kids and all that stuff?
I think there's yours.
Those, yeah, that would be under the recreation programs. Yep. So that's on page, it's the last page. We will get to that.
What was the reasoning for the Raven Haven to go up $6,100?
We're getting to Raven Haven here. The main amount is $3,500 for insurance. So the cost of the facility insurance has increased.
Oh, insurance is taking it.
Should we just get rid of the building? Here you go down.
All right. Yeah, so the removal of the lifeguards and then insurance requirements. Moving on to the sports hub, I'm going to let Jim Morso speak to this. He's talking with the BCRA about an agreement on how that's going to potentially look. Big increase in insurance here, about $20,000. This is for the track, the turf, the washroom facility. It increased substantially. Assessment increased on it. That is basically the reasoning. Replacement cost increased, and our premiums went up. So that is most of the increase for the sports hub.
So again, looking at the community tax rate, and we've got a budget in there for salaries for $15,000. So just keep that in mind when we argue about the community rate, because there's not $15,000 in helping our communities in the East End organize at our schools and our playgrounds and our recreational facilities in the East End. Again, just because county owns the facility in Bridgetown does not dictate all citizens are got to go there.
Good to know. Jim?
Yeah, so council is aware that we have begun negotiations with the BCRA regarding expanded management of the BCRA to include the sports hub. I had a meeting, and I think I updated you, or maybe I haven't, but I had a meeting that a week and a half ago. 2 of our councilors were in attendance at that meeting, and I'm waiting to hear back from the BCRA on our proposal to allow them to manage the sports hub, including maintenance, ongoing, and once our washroom facilities are completed, managing the washroom facility as well. And I'll report back to council when we get that done. So this may look a little bit different, be included in a management agreement with the BCRA.
Councillor Gunn, please.
Thank you so much. I wonder where the volunteer group that solicited council to take this project on here before it was ever built, whatever happened to them? They were going to run all this. They were going to run the sports hub. That's what they pitched us. Thank you. No, oh, and that's for you.
Councillor Bond, please.
Yeah, I'm looking at the insurance part of it for the sports hub. A lot of the time, that particular complex is used by the school. So the school has insurances as well. So I'm wondering if that's a shared thing or not, or can it be spoken about to the school? I don't know. Is this something that we could look at? Because the schools pay insurance no matter what.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know. So is part of it
Yes.
our problem and their problem as well, because they're using it? Where do we fit in there? Can we?
And for the first time, Councillor Crouch.
Thank you. Just wanted to piggyback the last comment by Councillor LeBlanc. When I went through this proposed budget, it kept leaping off the pages. Insurance. This is perhaps one of the most egregious examples, and if there's any way, I mean, we need insurance, I'm not arguing about not having it, but any way we could perhaps partnership with the EVRC on this particular incident would be a good idea, to at least explore it.
Yes.
Further to insurance, plans for the current operational year are to go to RFP. That's a good way to make sure we are getting competitive insurance rates. Do we need a broker? Do we not have a broker? Do we go with specific municipal insurance? Who do we go with? So that is in the works. We've started it, and that will happen in 23-24 unless plans significantly change. That was the original plan for that. But I think a worthy conversation to have with some of the other people that use our facilities as well.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Councillor Gunn.
Thank you. Perhaps we should think about giving this facility to the school system. I think it would be a good use of it. Thank you.
Councillor Sheridan.
So in regards to the sports hub, recently we approved a capital project for an additional $200,000 storage unit that's going to be filled with items. Have we allocated insurance for that in this budget?
No, it wouldn't be a full year, so the impact would be probably by the time it's done, a part year impact, but no, that has not been included in here.
And we have no idea how much that would be additional insurance, because that's just going to impact our budget for next year.
It depends on the content insurance and it depends on the replacement value, so I can't, until we know what it's going to look like, we can't estimate anything for insurance purposes on that front.
But doesn't insurance start when you first dig the hole?
Builder's insurance?
That's builder's insurance. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
There is a likelihood that the Bridgetown School will close by the time that this is built. So by the time it's permanently on our policy, that will likely be gone. We're hoping. We can't predict the exact timelines because we can't control the court application process. But the building process is also they're both roughly a several-month process.
So you're saying the insurance from the Bridgetown School would...
That's something we've been thinking about and hoping for, and there's no reason to believe there's going to be a significant time difference between the two.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Connell.
Sports hub. Users fees. Zero for this year. And we had a presentation from a facility in the West End yesterday that would like our help. And they're using user fees for the residents of the West End. When we use the facilities in the East End, we pay user fees. But yet, again, because we assume that everyone in our county is going to jump in their car and the price of gas and the price of all the influx, they're going to drive to Bridgetown because it's free. Ridiculous. I'm not very happy that there's something shouldn't be put in place for user fees.
I'll let Jim speak more to it. Those user fees were facility rentals prior, but I will let Jim speak to the BCRA end of that.
Yeah, so I've had 1 year with, not quite a year, with the sports hub. And correct, there's not a lot of user fees. I look at the BCRA model and what they've done with the arena and the user fees that they generate and create to sustain themselves. Thus, the reason for expanding the agreement to include the sports hub, so the BCRA can take their model and apply that to the sports hub to create user fees so that they can sustain themselves, to your point, Councillor.
It would be nice to see the BCRA be sustainable 100%.
Yes.
Because the facility in Lordstown pays for all of their operators out of rentals. The rink in Middleton pays for their rink attendees out of rentals in the rink in Middleton, but yet we're still paying, taxpayers across our county are still paying to subsidize the operation of the Bridgetown Arena. So hopefully they're working toward being self-sustained.
If I may just add a comment to Councilor Connell, like whatever group that may take over management of a sports hub, they're going to be, they're going to have a problem in respect to user fees. Because all of a sudden, for 2 years, there were no fees.
Right.
And then there's going to be fees, right? And there's going to be an outcry. And so that is going to be a real problem for this group that may be taking over that field. You know, and they may be handcuffed to a certain degree in not being able to charge the fees that they should be charged.
Well, if there is a group that takes over and they set in fees, there's an outcry, you listen to the outcry and you say, thank you very much.
Another subject, and go back to insurance. So that insurance increase had nothing to do with liability? No, so it was just for the physical things that are there. The buildings, the turf, and so on. So we actually insure the turf and the running track. Don't we have warranties on those?
Oh, that's not.
You pay for the warranty.
And there's also insurance on top.
Readings and stuff like that.
And for the first time. Councilor Longmire.
Should I stand and take a bow? I'm always looking at, thank you, I'm always looking at the endless opportunities for partnerships. And I look at the outside recreation groups that have to pay a fee in order to use the interior of our schools. And so thus it only makes sense that they should as well reciprocate the generosity. You know, we have the athletic group there in Bridgetown, primarily from Bridgetown. And, you know, there's very few rec soccer groups. It's primarily school-driven, right? And we don't have the same surface in all of the communities. So this is quite an elite space to be able to play and practice and whatnot. It's long overdue, the 2 years, right? No user fees. Everywhere else you would be expected, right? And you know, the rinks do a great job at charging their hockey teams. They generate the funds that way to pay for referees and some maintenance and whatnot. So it definitely has to be seen. And I would like to think that the BCRA would consider going to the school board and looking to that relationship, because it is primarily used there with their school.
Give it to them.
Could I add, it's now 12:10 if you sit over here. If you sit over here, it's 12:11.
We can say more.
Are we on a roll for the last page or so?
Yes.
Yeah, you get park trails on those.
Well,
Go ahead, Angela.
I have a question before we go on there.
Questions aren't permitted when we're on a roll.
Well, I would like to know if we do not have a policy that numbers to tell us for renting the facility. I know there's somewhere. I know through COVID it was a different thing, but I know somebody knows about the rental of the home.
Yes.
So is there anybody that can give you that? Yes.
during the period that we did budget with Louis up at the Legion. One of those meetings also set usage fees for the sports hub. And we have been charging that except for the use by the school, because it was also determined by council at that time that schools wouldn't be charged. We were in COVID at that time.
Yeah.
And so one of the concessions that was made for COVID was that schools wouldn't be charged at that time.
Right.
The fees are scheduled to be brought back for re-examination by council, but that won't happen if it's going to go by agreement to be operated by another organization. We have been earning it for
Yes, so it was set up. Thank you.
Councillor Enslow, followed by the Deputy Warden.
Thank you. I know Bridgetown's always a hot topic, but anyway. So, in regards to the sports hub, I was very surprised about the user's fee, because both my kids play soccer and we pay fees. So I'm assuming that I'll have to look more on that on my own side, but I do agree that we should be looking at some type of partnership with the school, because the same thing could be said about the plowing of the parking lot by the hub, like we had a discussion about earlier, where they're just assuming us to take on things, but they're being used, and it doesn't seem fair, I have to admit on that. So I do agree that we should look at.
Right, we gotta check that.
Yeah, I'm honest.
There you go.
But I do agree that we should be looking at that. I know that the insurance, there's nothing that we can really do except for the RFP, which I think might actually benefit us. But it is a nice facility, but I think the partnership needs to be had.
Thank you. Deputy Warden, please.
Dan.
This is admittedly somewhat a selfish curiosity. I want to go back to our egregious insurance increases. And this is in no way an endorsement for this thought either.
Okay.
Are we allowed to self-insure? Like the province self-insures everyone.
Yeah, we had
It's a slippery slope.
Well, that's what I said. No way endorsing it. I was just wondering.
The province,
I'm getting shaking heads no.
the province does self-insure, but it also has insurance, because I remember the Deputy Minister of Highways telling us a while ago that there was something in Antigonish about a piece of equipment that went bad, and he said our deductible is $1 million.
Wow. Could do that.
A big bond.
Okay, Angela.
Perfect. Just further to that point, I think one way we can manage it is maybe small claims, right? To keep our premium down, the smaller claims maybe we deal with in-house. That's a concept that we can revisit with an RFP process and how we move forward with that. So page 31, parks and trails. So this has been talked about a lot in the past year. We've got a lot of parks. The maintenance and other items weren't exactly happening last summer, so there is a significant increase in salaries and benefits. This is a result of allocating the staff for parks maintenance. So this is an estimated cost of public works staff time to maintain for grass cutting, all sorts of different items for all of the parks and trails. Some of our trails we don't maintain, but some we do. And the cost recovery is for the use of the fleet. So that's just a reminder on that item there.
Question.
Councillor Gunn, please.
Thank you so much. Can I ask why Raven Haven is again in here? There's really no trails out there, and certainly not $55,000 worth of trails.
Well, that's her cut and paste thing, I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was my cut and paste total line.
Oh, okay.
I'll fix that.
A few of those.
Sorry.
I don't know.
Councillor Longmire, followed by Councillor Connell.
Thank you.
Please.
Thanks. Do we have the capacity within Public Works or to be able to manage these parks and trails? Are we staffed completely?
I'll throw that over to Jim.
Yes.
Between our permanent staff, which actually we were meeting on it yesterday, about getting ready for the season, for what areas we need to focus on. Between our permanent staff, the equipment we have, and some seasonals that we bring on, we should have ample staff to do the work. It's just making sure they're mandated to do it.
Sure. Are the seasonal staff, have we looked at, or do we consider like student summer jobs for students? Yes, that's included. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Connell, please.
I'm glad to see that there's some repairs and maintenance money in there. When I came down through Bridgetown this morning, I made note of driving to a few places. And I see fresh piles of Class A dumped in Bridgetown parks. And I'm sure if I drove out to the launch on Shannon River, and if I drove out to the park on the lake in Springfield, I would not see the same thing. Just a reminder. We're countywide.
Thank you. So we need an assessment on that.
All right. So this is my kind of summary slide. I just want to reiterate some of the things, remind you of some of the things for your deliberation process. So for the general tax rate, 1 cent to change our tax rate by 1 cent for residential, it's $140,000. So just keeping that into perspective when we are deliberating items that, $1,000 won't make the impact, but $140,000 is the actual impact there. And conversely, if we need additional revenue, every cent is about $140,000. Commercial, $6,900.
You mean not 1 cent? You mean 0.01 cent? That's what your thing says here.
So that's 1 cent per $100 of assessment. Excuse me.
Penny.
It is.
It's a penny, yeah, per $100 assessment.
Penny on the dollar.
I don't know how to make the keyboard do the cent sign, so.
Thank you.
All right, and then the final table here is a breakdown. So per $100 of assessment, this is where that $100 goes to the different service areas. This is only levy. You will not see sewer services here or street lighting or any of the rated services. This is just the tax levy, which is your tax revenues. That is all that is included in this table, and the average tax bill breakdown of that $1,824, which is based on that average dwelling assessment of $177. So that is just a breakdown of where all the tax dollars are going. I know we all like to have that, and when the budget is finalized, we'll put in a pretty pie chart. It's included in your budget package in the pie chart, but we'll have that so that you have speaking points with your constituents after the fact. But going into deliberations, I just wanted to remind of all of these items and the impacts that it has. I will add with the commercial rate, we have not adjusted our commercial rate since prior to 2012. So all increases have been borne by the residents. Just something to keep in mind. That doesn't mean we have to change it. It is essentially up to you, but we have not changed our commercial rate since prior to 2012. I mean, it gives us $6,900, but it's something to think about.
Are you sure?
Yeah, quick question.
Okay.
Under library, I just wanted to know, is the Bridgetown Library owned by the county?
The building is, and it's included in our facilities, the Revere building. However, the library service, the library contribution is to the Annapolis Valley Regional Library.
Like the building, the parking lot, grounds?
Yes, that is ours.
In conclusion, although I do know her capacity and her knowledge, I was amazed at some of the questions that came to Angela, and I said, what's she going to do now? And she paused 5 seconds and gave an answer. And I thank her for the efforts in laying out the presentation and for delivering it. Now let's all come back at about 1:45 and we'll discuss what we're going to do next.
1:45 what?
1:45, that gives us about an hour and 15 minutes.
We can't make a motion to end this so we can think about this for a few days and then come back and do it.
Okay, you want to do it now? Okay.
I'd just soon do it now.
All right.
Why am I going for lunch and then coming back and waste my whole rest of my whole day?
Gives you a chance to look for Class A.
I've been sitting here for 2 hours and 20 minutes, folks.
No, he's just saying to postpone the afternoon and move to another day. Isn't that what you mean?
Well, we got another day scheduled.
To think about. Give us a day to think about.
We know our governance. If someone would like to make a motion, make a motion.
Go.
I'd like to make a motion that we call it good for today and give us time to read this over, sink in the figures, and meet at our next meeting for deliberation.
Thank you.
When do you want to set that date?
No, just...
We already did.
We had one on the 24th.
No, hold on. No, stop. We need a seconder for the motion.
Greer.
Councillor Gunn. Discussion for the motion, which is to adjourn and reconvene at a time to be desired. Councillor Prout, followed by Deputy Warden.
Thank you. If I may, we've already, I saw this afternoon, and I think I saw this afternoon as a chance to dig into it deeper. We wouldn't make any hard and fast decisions today, or I don't suspect that we would. But that would give us time to do the reflection that Councillor Connell has mentioned and hear the pros and cons. And we would come back at the other day that we have set up to hash it all out, put it together and see what it looks like. If we don't come back this afternoon to attempt that, are we not in danger of pushing ahead another day beyond the day we already have set aside, and all that that would entail to get everything done in time for setting the tax rate and approving the budget? That's just my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Warden.
Content to go home. Similar concerns to Mr. Prout, but I'm also very happy to sit here and have a polite, cordial, no holds barred rumble in the council chambers over budget.
Thank you. Councillor Sheridan.
So in regards to the delay, what time frame do we have before we have to set a tax rate?
So our billing goes out with a due date of June 30th. If we give 30 days, if we work that backwards, I would say the end of the first week in May, we have to have a tax rate set.
Okay.
At the absolute latest in order to meet all of those deadlines.
Okay, so we're not on a deadline for the end of April. We've got till almost the end of March.
We can give that extra week.
Yeah, well,
midweek,
mid-May.
Well, no, end of the first week of May.
First week of May.
Yeah.
So that's before committee of the whole.
It is, yeah. It's before
committee
the
of the
next
So
committee of the whole.
if you work towards the end of April, you should be safe.
So second question, can we set a tax rate without, can we set a tax rate without approving the budget?
No. Your tax rate depends on the budget.
I have a question about that.
Sorry, Shelley, did you want to add something?
No, that was correct.
Okay.
We have a rate by the end of April. We should be good for the tax bill.
First week of May.
And
That's the absolute deadline. I should have gave the non-absolute.
Okay, whoa. The other date we had set aside, the 24th, is not available.
Let's find another one, folks, next week.
Okay, now Councillor Enzo, your point.
That's the only question I had is, if we don't have an approved operating budget, what does that do to the county's day-to-day business? Is there already an agreement that up to 75% or, of last year's? I'm just coming from a federal background where we don't get the budget until June, but we're approved up to 75% of last year. I just don't want the county to stop.
No.
So I'm just curious on.
We won't stop.
Yeah, but there would be no new.
We don't stop.
Okay.
We just keep trying.
Yeah, but nothing new would occur.
Councillor Connell?
Yeah, because I thought I asked Jason Hahn that exact question. And he told me, I was assured that he told me that we did not have to pass our budget to set the tax rate. We can set the tax rate. And I read the article about Cape Breton, and Cape Breton's budget is on hold.
Okay, but that's a separate subject. What we're talking about is, do we wish to adjourn and reassemble at a later date? That's the motion on the floor. Councillor Hudson, followed by Councillor Sheridan.
Just from my perspective, deliberations, should we get into that this afternoon and not postpone those until next week or whatever date that may be? Because the deliberations could be lengthy. And perhaps we should cross part of that road today. So we don't have a bottleneck at the next meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Sheridan.
I was just wondering the same thing, because I've got a feeling it's going to be more than just this afternoon and possibly another additional day. So just having one more day before committee of the whole, if that's all that's available, probably won't be sufficient. So I'm not sure if we probably should come back maybe this afternoon for a bit.
But you can have as many days as you want before committee of the whole.
Well, they said there wasn't any available days. I think I heard the 19th, the 24th is out. What other available days do we have to look at?
Okay.
If I may, as far as staff and finance manager availability, we have council on the 18th. There may be some time in the afternoon, and we also have the 19th and the 17th next week.
Beautiful. How about we come back Monday?
Listen, we are talking about whether we are going to adjourn and come back at a later date to be specified.
Good question.
Councillor Connell.
I am leaving today at 4 o'clock. I have other commitments, and I will be going at 4 o'clock. So that'll be a part of, if we're going to go today, at 4 o'clock, I am done.
So just an hour and a half.
Further comments? All in?
Oh, never mind, I digress.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, never mind.
I think we're here, and there's a lot of lengthy discussions to be had, but with the progressive, maybe we should take off the opportunity to get started. We don't have to be covering everything today, but we can put our foot in the water.
Yeah.
See what the temperature is. Go from there.
Question?
No, that doesn't matter.
Wait, something.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. The motion is defeated.
Okay, so we
Quarter to 2, please.
There you go.
And we're not,
Welcome back to this special committee of the whole. Deputy Warden, I move that we approve the operating budget as circulated. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Prout. Discussion. Councillor Connell.
I will not be voting for the motion. For one thing, on the Bridgetown area rate during dissolution, it was put in a price for the wages to help the recreation facilities in Bridgetown at $49,174. And until there's a new agreement with the Bridgetown Rec Committee that takes care of those facilities, I think the wage should stay the same. So I will not be voting for the budget with that in there, because it's dropped to $21,286.
But you do have the option of proposing an amendment.
Are we gonna go individually through this whole thing?
I thought we were gonna discuss it.
Yeah.
We have a motion on the floor to adopt the budget. We either adopt it, or people can say, I would like to make an amendment to do this, to do that.
I'll make an amendment that we hold discussions this afternoon, take a break, and have another day to come back and finish the discussions, because some councilors are leaving at 3:30, and that's only an hour and a half. And that the budget will be voted on at a different meeting.
But I'm not sure that's a brand-new motion. It's antithetical to the motion. However, there's nothing in the motion that says we have to do anything within a specific time frame.
I'll vote against the motion when it comes then, sir.
I'm very doubtful that it'll come this afternoon. It might, I don't know.
But on the aspect of discussion, my point still stands. I will not support the motion because of that one article on the Bridgetown community rate. Some of my other discussion is that we've been told that this past year would be probably a peak in our assessment, so it's gonna probably start going down. So when that goes down, it's gonna put strain back onto us having to raise the tax rate. So also in my discussion is that I would also will not be supporting leaving the funding in for 2 directors in this budget. I think that we have some work ahead of us. We have a new CAO that's taking office, and I'm hoping that we'll take time and to look at in-house to see if the expertise is there to offer a direct position to an in-house person, or if we have to go outside to fill those 2 spots. I agree that we have to do strategically think about succession planning, but I've never seen a company in my life wake up this morning and say, oh my God, I gotta restart succession planning and plan it all in 1 year. So I'm not for putting all these new positions in place. I'm for some of them. The engineer is definitely in a spot that we've got to look at. We've never had an opportunity to look at the org chart yet. We have no inkling even what that's showing. So those are just some of the things that I'm going to be supporting and discussion more on when the time comes before I ever make a vote.
Thank you. Your first one had to deal with Bridgetown area rate. Are you going to make an amendment to do something with that particular figure?
Yeah, I would like to make an amendment that we leave in the 49,174 for the, they're calling it arena wages, but I don't believe it's all arena. I think it's recreational. For the recreational services in the Bridgetown catchment area, community catchment area. Leave it in at 49,174.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Enslow, discussion on the inclusion or exclusion of that dollar amount.
What was the amendment?
Yeah, what was the amendment?
49,174.
Just leave the figure at 49,174.
Thank you.
Can I get a clarification here?
Yes.
So there's been a motion put on the floor Now, we're going to go through and make all because I have a whole bunch of amendments here, things I'd like to discuss as well. And that's what we're all going to do on that one motion. We're going to change that motion right around in the end. Sir?
Well, what we are going to do is vote on the amendment.
Oh, well, that's what we're going to do now, and then we're going to vote on another
Well,
amendment.
I can't
And we can
afford that.
keep amending and amending and amending. This is what we're going to do, or are we going to call the question whether we're going to support it or not? Laura?
Is there discussion on the amendment to the motion to leave in the sum of $49,174? Deputy Warden.
So this amended sum, or the sum that's in the proposed budget, 21,000. That's calculated off of actuals from this last fiscal year?
What page are we on anyway?
It would be, that would be.
It's on the page.
What page is that here right here somewhere?
I got it.
Page 4 of the presentation.
Got it, thank you.
Is that-
What page of the budget?
Who's on first?
That's not in the budget, that's in the
Just on the
presentation.
presentation.
And that is on, I don't have numbers.
Third sheet.
The third sheet,
Third
yeah,
sheet.
thank you.
Third sheet top.
No, we got the wrong document.
You got the wrong, yeah.
We are talking about the budget.
Yeah, well,
This is the document.
But this was in,
That was an explanation. And then, so there's nothing in the document to deal with that subject?
no,
There's nothing in
The
the
Bridgetown
budget to deal with
community
that?
rate can be found in the corporate services revenues. Sorry, yes, we can do it that way. And that is page 18. Yeah. And it would be the line item for area rates.
But see, that doesn't specifically tell us.
But the effect of your amendment is to delete the difference between that right-hand figure and the 49,000.
that's confusing.
Can you tell us what it is? The dollar amount?
Yeah, so the 21,000 is the amount for a specific position. That is what I included in there. We can, I know there's other
No,
allocations.
I would just like to know the difference between that right-hand figure and the 49,000 figure.
Okay, the allocation to the arena from the prior year. So this is a position for arena attendant is what the 21,000 is.
No,
you want the number.
I'm just talking about the number. I am not talking about positions.
I think so, so you check my math up.
It's confusing.
Last year minus this year.
Just the difference between the
difference,
49 and the 21?
27,888.
27,888.
27,888. So I think your amendment was to delete or to add increase by 27,888 in
Area rates?
area rates.
For Bridgetown.
Which forms part of corporate services. Okay. Councillor Enslow.
I just want some clarification. I thought when we talked about this reduction, that it was all part of the realignment of salaries and shared costs. of different it's not like the services are changing, it's just the reallocation of funding to the different cost centers. Is that my understanding? Is that right?
Yes. Yes, in principle, yes.
So we're not losing services.
No.
That's staying status quo. It's just because we're realigning cost centers and that amount of money is showing up somewhere else in public works, right?
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
For the county instead of for the.
Yes, exactly, but it's all part of the whole shuffle of.
Correct.
To realign what is actually paying for what.
Councillor Hudson, please.
Yes, I just want to make note. If you go back to last year, the community rate from last year, and there were different items that were listed, right? On last year, recreation was $49,174. This one says arena wages. If I'm correct, the $49,174 covered the Jubilee Park and things like that. So I would be against the amendment because that $49,174 figure does not pertain solely to the arena.
And that was my question. I said it's not just to the arena. She put in just the arena cost.
Yeah.
But she didn't put in what amount of staff time is spent at the rink or at the swimming pool.
Yeah.
We got 10,000 something at the hub in that category. It should not be named as the rink wages. It should be the recreational wages in the Bridgetown catchment area.
Question. I'm not going to ask a question, I didn't want to.
Pardon me?
I want to speak, I didn't want to ask the question.
Yes, right, not yet. Not yet. So, Councillor Connell, if that wording is changed to what you think it should be, does that mean you will not offer your amendment?
The amendment would still be.
The amendment's still got to go to 49,174, but it's got to be changed to recreational wages.
Okay.
Because that's what it was identified in the dissolution.
All right, hold on. That is something that can be done.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Bartel.
Just a little baffled by how this is all evolving. Is the difference between previous year's budget and this one for 2136? Does that difference show up in a different category somewhere else? So it's not that Councilor Connell wants to put it back in, it's actually showing up somewhere else, and it is in the total package somewhere. It's just not here.
So correct.
Okay.
The expense related to this is in the budget. It is likely the ones you're referring to under Parks and Trails. So what this amendment would do was take $27,889 from Parks and Trail salaries and benefits, and it would bring in revenues to offset that through the use of an area rate or the Bridgetown community rate. So
this is a more accurate figure to what's actually being spent for wages at the arena. And it's taking it out of that other figure that it's been broken down differently from the last budget.
Yes. It's different from last year's budget, and this amendment brings in revenues to offset the cost that is there either way. Yes. So the amendment is to increase the revenues from the Bridgetown community rate.
My point is, if we bring that back in here, we've got to take that back out somewhere else.
No, because we still have to pay the salaries and benefits. This is a revenue coming in as an area rate. We still have to expense the salaries and benefits. So it would be a net zero impact on your taxes or your tax rate. But we wouldn't be removing expenses from the county budget. These revenues would be removing it from the levy component of the budget, yes. But we wouldn't be reducing an overall expense somewhere else. This is increasing revenues we're bringing in.
Thank you. Councillor Hudson?
Yes. I think this is an important point. It appears to me that 49,174 comes from, or is because the facilities are located in Bridgetown to a certain extent. I do want to make the point that there are other recreation facilities throughout the county. Ravenhaven is one, for example, where we spend $60,000-$70,000. And why should the Bridgetown residents pay for recreation within the town, whereas the rest of the county does not pay for recreation? Doesn't pay for recreation. It's all, the rest of the county, it's all within, I'll call it the base tax, the 102, right? Pays for all the recreation. Am I correct there, Angela?
Correct.
Okay. Other than Bridgetown?
Correct.
And I don't think that's fair.
Thank you. Councillor Anslow, please.
So I agree with Mr. Hudson because yes, the facilities are in Bridgetown, and it is often led to believe that it's only Bridgetown people that use these facilities, which is not the fact. Is it used mostly by? Maybe. But we still have people that travel through. But I think by just changing the name of arena wages to rec wages, it fixes this whole thing, because it's not the fact that the money is accounted for, it's just part of the shift. So I just don't, maybe I'm not understanding the whole, maybe, like, in my mind I understand it, but maybe I don't.
If I may.
Councillor Sheridan.
I was just going to point out there's other facilities in the Bridgetown, such as the hub, that is not included in your community rate. So across the county, when it levels itself out, I think it's more fair to leave it at 49, because you are getting other things that we don't even have in our districts at no cost across the county. That's just to put that in there.
Councillor Hudson?
Yeah, I just want to make one further point. The 49,174 goes back to last year, and that was the requirement for recreation that was calculated last year. I don't know how that same requirement can be used this year. That the requirement this year should be recalculated. And I don't know what the basis of the of that 49,174 was, but I think that requirement needs to be recalculated. Because you just can't take a requirement from a previous year and apply it to a coming year.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Fawley.
I don't think that figure was picked out of the sky. I think that was during disillusion.
No.
During disillusion, there were certain things brought out by the community that they wanted to keep in their community. They felt they needed people to run the facilities. So there was a set number during dissolution to put in for recreational support. It wasn't put in there for a rink wages. It wasn't put in there solely for the swimming pool wages. It wasn't put in there for the park. It was put in under recreation, under dissolution. If the community still wants that, it should be on their area rate. If they don't want it, then I think all the wages for the arena should come out, and they should be self-sustained, the same as the arenas that support our county.
Sure. Thank you.
So that's why, and that's where the number come from. It wasn't chosen out of the sky on how much was and who was paying what. During dissolution, the committee came up with that much money they wanted to left in their community to support the recreation in their community.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, Councillor Hudson, you've already spoken twice. Is there agreement that he can speak a third time?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Please.
Yeah. I guess I just want to make note. I don't know if you all recall. Maybe it was in January or February of 2022. I think we spent 2 or 3 days talking about community rates, right? And out of that discussion, there was proposals made, and these figures come out of those discussions that we had in 2022, and they do not refer back to dissolution.
Yes, they do.
It's okay. It's all right. Thank you. Further discussion. Deputy Warden.
Where is the rest of this full-time position spent? So we have an employee, we're paying for somebody half the year at the arena. Where are the rest of these?
Parks and Rec.
I think in the main, what we're doing here is we are dealing with amounts that are in the budget. And the amendment is to make a change to the amounts.
Rephrase that then. Where do the rest of these wages get allocated?
Personally, I have no idea.
Okay. Sorry, just waiting for... Parks and Trails is where the rest of those salaries and wages reside. And I just want to point out that this is just a proposed budget. This isn't necessarily what I believe or what it should be. It is up to you how you want to do your community rates and stuff. So whatever propositions you have, we can reflect those, and I will keep a running tally over here. But if that is the wish to increase that, we can absolutely do that. It is up to council at this point.
Thank you. Further discussion. All those in favor of the amendment signify by raising hands and saying yes.
Could we have the amendment first?
Okay.
It was moved by Councillor Connell, seconded by Councillor Enslow, to amend the motion to leave the amount of $49,174 for arena wages in the Bridgetown area rate, in bracket, increase the corporate services area rates by an amount of $27,888.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? 1, 2, 3. Somebody who didn't vote. Was it you, Councillor Gunn? Did you vote?
Oh, I voted. First time. I voted with.
All right, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those against? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. The motion is defeated.
No,
The motion is carried. Thank you.
I like the ladder.
Councillor Connell, your second point was about assessment. Do you have a motion, or did you just want to register that thought with us?
No, I just wanted to register that thought with us, is that we have the opportunity to put a little more in reserves this period of time because we have a peak in assessment. Next year, we may not have that opportunity. So again, thinking back that we do not know the cost of the RCMP back then, we have other issues on the table that has been discussed, and it is an opportunity where there is a peak to be very cautious that we just don't spend because of
said. Your next point had to do with, if I interpreted it correctly, is that there are 2 directors' positions being paid in the budget, and you don't agree with that. Did I say that rightly?
Correct.
Would you like to make an amendment then dealing with an amount of money in a particular section of the budget, or sections?
Not knowing the exact cost is very hard to do that. I'm just saying that I don't disagree with doing succession planning, but again, nobody can wake up and say, okay, we're going to do it all in 1 year. Plus, we have a new CAO that will have a different set of eyes on how succession planning will be, which he hasn't had the opportunity to see what staff we have that could be in training over the next 2 years to achieve that. Or do we have to go to source and have new employees brought in? I'm just saying is that I'm not disagreeing on hiring for succession planning that we got in here as far as a junior engineer, people in the GIS thing, extra building inspectors that we have in here. I'm not against that, but I am against putting money in the budget this year, even though it was in last year, which has nothing to do with this year. I would like to see the funding for the 2 directors be taken out of the budget until next season. Until next year.
And that's the amendment you're making?
That's the amendment.
No, to amend the motion to remove 2 directors from the budget. And we need a seconder.
Oh, I'll second it.
Councillor Gunn. Is it possible, Angela, that we could quantify? Okay.
Yeah, so to quantify it, it's $294,066. That's for salaries and benefits for the 2 director positions mentioned. And that you can kind of see what happens to the far right column is actually what happens to the reserve contribution to continue to balance the budget. Sorry, should go up there. So it would increase the reserve contribution to 811, keeping the tax rate constant. I'm sorry, I know it's small.
Are you able to freeze the top column?
Yes, I can do that for you.
Please and thank you.
I'm just, yeah.
So the effect,
There we go.
the effect of the amendment, Councillor Connell, if I understand it, is to remove 294,066 from the budget.
Yes.
I can't see that.
Sorry.
Well, that's getting better.
Is that any better?
So we don't want to be that short.
Are we able to have it on full screen?
Reserves are over here.
So the amendment that Councillor Connell put forward is to amend the motion, that's our main motion, to remove 2 directors from the budget at an amount of 294,066.
And to place it in the reserves, is that the end of that motion, or is it there?
No, it's just to,
It would automatically go into reserves.
We would deal with that as a holistic budget approval motion, because yes, you can either reduce the rate or the reserves, but I would say make the changes, and then we'll see where we're at, and then we could deal with the final reserve replenishment and tax rate when we approve the overall budget, once you're happy with the changes.
Councillor Sherry.
So in the discussion, because it was mentioned about the organizational chart and a new CAO coming in position, I believe there were other new positions in there as well that, I think there was one in the clerk's office, one in, and one in somewhere else. And I'm just going by this because we're doing it differently, and it's
No, right now we are concerned.
I understand that, but we were talking about the organizational chart is where his amendment
The next subject.
came from. So I was Do you want me to stop there, or?
We're dealing with Councillor Connell's amendment in and of itself.
Just the two directors' positions, and the other ones will still be in the, for now.
You can go and make another amendment.
Okay.
Any more discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment indicate yes, and put your hand up.
What?
Question.
So, if we leave the directors in, but they don't get filled, that money still ends up in reserves at the end of the year.
Not necessarily.
Well,
That's a
that's
decision.
what happens.
They,
Over any surplus at the end of the year goes to reserves. So,
We have to make a motion to that effect at the appropriate time.
and where else would it go? It doesn't roll back into operating next year.
It will go wherever council decides to put it, or whatever council decides to do it.
Council can, as was pointed out to us in one of our training sessions, council can do many things. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are legal, appropriate, or necessarily good decisions. But that is function where the money ends up. There's nowhere else for it to end up. So what happens if we want to fill a director in 4 or 5 months, then we're putting directors back into the budget?
Then
Should our CIO decide that?
that's the purview of the CAO, and he would come to council and say this.
Yes. So we as a council over the last many months have spoken about how we wanted directors and town managers, and I don't see how your organization works if you're cleaning up block in the middle there. You're leaving a great big gap. Anyways, that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Sheridan.
I was just going to point out that Angela mentioned earlier that part of the money that was set aside for the directors in this last budget was used for the consultant that we hired to help Angela. And that's where, if you put it back in the reserves, it has to come back to council. Because I didn't know that that's where that money was being taken from. So it was being used.
That was the motion we passed.
Thank you. Councillor Longmire, please.
Thank you. So, although I know that the staff have needs, we, as council, have not seen the organizational chart, which I really feel this is all going to kind of be worked through our new CAO, who will be able to give us a better understanding as to what the needs truly are based on that organizational chart. I find us running around saying yes and no and to directors or managers, doesn't matter what they are. If they're needed, then we'll know that through additional information that's going to be provided to us.
Yes. Thank you. Councillor Hudson.
Yes. I guess I would just like to make an amendment to Councillor Connell's motion to add the senior administrative assistant to that list, as well as the legislative services coordinator.
New position.
Those are 2 new positions.
Those
The
are
other
the 2 positions.
Yeah.
That have been recommended by staff. Right?
All right.
I'll second it.
Councillor Sheridan seconds. Discussion on the amendment to the amendment. Councillor Connell.
As most of us know, once the budget is passed, it is 100% staff's doings to deal with it, what's in the budget. This is our only kick at the can to make sure that we have input in when those positions are made, information brought to us, that's needed. And again, we haven't seen the organizational chart, but there's been a request to put money in there for something we haven't seen. And we don't even know if 100% if it's needed. If it's an item that our new CAO feels it's important to get progress done in our county, it gives him the opportunity to come back and give us that information. And at that time, we have full right to take the money out of the operating reserve or out of any reserve that we feel that's fit for it to come out of, and legally, to do so. This is a way for myself to explain to my citizens that I did not approve for extra funding for people that were not even 100% know where they're going to fit in, what they're going to be achieving for our citizens' taxes.
Thank you. Councillor Enslow, please.
Thank you, sir. So I will not be voting for this amendment. Mostly for one reason is I believe that the senior administrative assistant is a position that is needed. I agree that we shouldn't be doing a mass hiring and creating positions until we see the org chart, 100%. But I'm concerned about that one position. Even though I've only been here for a short time, I seem to be here on a daily basis. And I witness what our clerk and deputy clerk, they constantly look overwhelmed. And most other places or organizations would have that role, and I think it's a needed role. That's why I'm not going, only because that position was listed in the amendment. I will not be voting for it.
Thank you. Further discussion. Councillor Baum, please. Councillor Price.
And I agree with the same thing as Councillor Enslow. It's a position that's very important to assist us in governance and so on. So I find it hard to have to vote against that. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor Sheridan. Sorry. Councillor Prout.
I'll just, in brevity, I'll concur with the last two speakers.
Thank you. Councillor Sheridan.
I'm going to vote for the amendment. I'm not saying they don't need it.
The amendment to the amendment.
The amendment to the amendment is because the CAO can come back to us at any time and say, okay, this position needs to be filled. So if it's needed, and I assume it is, it will get filled through another way. It will get filled.
Thank you.
So.
Councillor Enslow.
I understand what Councillor Sheridan was saying, but I'm concerned with the wait. So it's going to prolong this thing. As government, whether it's local or not, we are slow. So, not just us, but that's a general government statement. We are slow. So I don't want to see this decision have a negative impact on our ability as a council to effectively govern, because our support personnel aren't able to fully support the way that they should. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment to the amendment. Deputy Warden.
I'm consistently amazed how we will sit here and complain about not getting anything done and then routinely cut the legs out from underneath our staff as to their ability to do their job. I think we should remove shovels and paper clips after this from the budget.
Thank you. Can we have the amendment to the amendment?
It was moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Sheridan, to amend the amendment by adding Senior Administrative Assistant and Legislative Services Coordinator. We didn't have enough.
All those in favor of the amendment to the amendment, please raise your hands and say yes.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The motion is, the amendment to the amendment is defeated. We will now vote on the amendment. And when I say amendment, this is an amendment to the main motion to adopt the budget. Please.
So that is to amend the motion to remove 2 directors from the budget, an amount of $294,066.
All those in favor signify by saying yes and raising your hands.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4.
You.
Yeah, I
And
know.
yourself.
6 in favor on this one, to remove the directors.
I'm against, but the motion, the amendment passes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Your last comment, Councillor Connell, had to do with the org chart, and I think most of us are of the view that we'll be happy when we get it.
Right, and I'll be happy for our new CAO to get it, so he can report his concerns to us about the org chart, good or bad.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion.
There's no motion.
We're even Stephen.
The main
No, there was a main
The
motion.
motion is to adopt
To
the
adopt the
operating
budget.
budget.
Oh,
Okay.
I thought there was gonna be more. Nobody else?
Councillor Gunn.
Thank you very much. I'd like to offer an amendment to that
See?
motion, and it's going to be unpopular. But and I want to give you a little background before I actually lay the motion on the table. Thanks. I've sat here for just a few years now, but I mean, I've watched our service level in government and municipal government in particular go up through the years. Every time we turn around, we have another group coming at us wanting money. We've got inflation numbers that I haven't seen in a lot of years. And it doesn't look like it's going to stop right where it's at. We have increased our service levels in commercial. We now pick up commercial waste through our waste stream. They could actually write that off, but somewhere along the line we've picked it up. I'd like to see that I would move or to make an amendment to this motion. I'm not quite sure how you put it, that we increase our tax rates by a penny on right across the board, residential, resource, and commercial. A few years ago,
Councillor Gunn, I think that motion is not in order, as we do not have the information necessary to determine what the tax rate might be. And so it might be that we would reduce the tax rate by this, we would increase the tax rate by that, we would leave the tax rate the way it is, but we have nothing on which to judge it until we deal with the main motion.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Further discussion on the motion,
So that's the main motion, is it?
the main motion.
Okay. I guess I do have an amendment,
Okay?
and I'm afraid I can't put a dollar value to this, but I want to go back to the Bridgetown community rate, and I want to talk about the fire services support, $46,524.
And what part of the budget is that?
Pardon me?
Where is that in the budget? That's the presentation.
Just back to
That's the presentation. We're dealing with the budget.
I think it's under area rates.
Corporate services, area rates, and I believe it's page 20, 18, sorry, 18.
Well, no, you gotta go to this here. Councilor
look up
Connell was referring to this 49,174 on this sheet.
Which page is
Okay,
that?
let's not lose this. Yes.
I would like the Bridgetown area rate to be talked about separately so we know what the rate is for the percentage for the Bridgetown area rate, so we can bring our information that we talked and voted on, that Dave talked about last year. So we can say the Bridgetown area rate to be such percentage, and this can be put in the budget. To be crossing it into the budget gets very confusing. Because we already went through this all last year and have all voted on adding certain things to that Bridgetown community rate. Now, because it's mixed into the budget so severely, every time we talk about it, we can't find it in the budget to see what it is. We have to go back to the presentation, because it lines it out in the presentation what we voted on last year to leave in the budget as a Bridgetown area rate. And if that needs to change, we should be dealing with the Bridgetown area rate as a separate identity, so that we can set the Bridgetown area rate as what council feels that has been required over the past years. The way we're dealing with it, it's so mixed in that I agree, every time we go to the budget, we can't find out where we talk about it. It's very confusing.
And where would you see this discussion taking place in the grand scheme?
It should have been discussed first, so we knew that we are all going to be passing and voting on what needs to be in that Bridgetown area rate. And whatever's passed should be incorporated into the budget. Because if they want to take it out of certain categories, I don't care if they take it out of recreation or if they take it all out of IT. That doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that we voted on certain things being left in the Bridgetown community rate. And now every time we go to it, we have a hard time finding how to discuss it. So to me, it's an area rate that's separate from all the other area rates in our county. We have a ruling on street lights. If I haven't got a street light in front of my house, I don't have to worry about what the area rate is for street lights. Because where they are, that's where they're area rated. But we have no policy on the Bridgetown area rate. All we have is the discussions on what was included in that Bridgetown area rate during dissolution.
Excuse me.
And last year we discussed on what should come out because dissolution's done, and we felt that some things should be come out because it's part of our county organization. But we also voted on what should be kept in it. And in order to change what's in that packet, we should have talked about that packet.
So do we talk about that now, or do we talk about it at the end of our deliberations?
Well, it has to be talked before we pass a motion that we accept the budget.
So that could be the last item of consideration.
Yes, because that may be for another day. That we can bring the information we have, because I've kept all my information on the Bridgetown motions that we made last year. I know emails was sent out a few weeks ago on how everything was voted on and what the amounts were. So in my mind, we've got no background information on that article to support anything. I can't argue my concerns, if I don't know for sure, was it for $46,524 last year voted on and passed? I don't know that. Might have been $500 less, it might have been 10,000 more.
So,
If I could, let's, our manager of finance might be able to help with your comments and questions.
Just to clarify, so it was under the revenue section. The revenue section became corporate services, so it's actually in the same spot. The revenues from the community rate, it's just under the corporate services budget. It is lumped in a line item called area rate, so we can absolutely pull that out and call the line item Bridgetown community rate and present it separately if that's what you wish. That is not a problem. And in terms of this amendment here to fix the wages from just the arena wages to including some parks and trails wages as well, has actually brought us up to the same way it was calculated last year, with the exception of the sale of the facility for the town hall and the retirement of the loan 32A1, which was a sewer loan, Bridgetown buildings loan, and a town hall rental loan. So other than that, at this point with the amendment, we are in the exact same spot as we were last year and including the same wages in it. But I can absolutely put that in a separate line item, Bridgetown community rate under corporate services, so it's easily identifiable.
Well, because even in this report, I know some of the loans were paid off, but there's no identification. If one of my citizens came up and said, well, last year in the budget, the Bridgetown community, they owed this loan, this loan, and this loan, which loans were paid off, I'd have to say, stupid, but I don't know, because they're not identified. We don't know which loans are paid off. We don't know. We know if we read back in the information some of the loans that are left. We also have planned a community meeting in that community to see what they want to do with the money from the sale of their building that was supposed to go back to the community. So to me, we need that to be a separate identity and not mixed in with the budget, so we know exactly what we voted on before, what is taken out, and what loan has been paid off. Because otherwise, we're guessing. If someone came up and asked me, I wouldn't have a clue what loans they paid off. And I wouldn't be able to explain to them why the rate dropped for Bridgetown, or why wasn't rated. The information's not here to support that.
thank you. So, Councillor Hudson, would you agree, if there appeared to be a consensus, that after we finish the current process, we have a session that looks at the Bridgetown area rate before we vote on the main motion?
Yes.
Would that be agreeable to folks? I don't see any shaking of the heads. All right, thank you.
So what is the timeline for that? Mainly because I've heard a public meeting being thrown in there.
No, that's...
Yes, but it was thrown in there, so
Yeah, but
hopefully we're sticking to the area rate and why, because it would be a benefit
Yes.
for everybody.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
perfect. And the timeline?
The timeline is very exact, but it's imprecise.
That's what I thought.
Or it's very precise, but it's, anyway, where are we?
I think you've just decided to discuss the Bridgetown community rate after you've gone through the rest of the process,
right.
before you approve the motion,
All right.
before you vote on the motion
Yes.
to approve the budget.
Is there further discussion on the main motion? All right, so,
On the main
Wait,
motion?
that's to accept it.
pardon me?
The main motion.
Have we not postpone that vote?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I'm not ready.
No.
I'm not-
Yes, what we have said, the order of sequence is consideration of the budget. When consideration of the budget is finished, and finito, we will discuss the Bridgetown area rate. There may or may not be adjustments at that time. After that discussion, we will vote on the main motion. Thank you. So what I'd like to suggest now, because there's no other okay.
No, I was just going to say, I come back from lunch not thinking that motion was going to be on the floor. I thought we were going to have time to discuss and deliberate. I didn't realize that it was going to be, I feel like I'm rushed. And I thought I'd be able to go home tonight and take my time, go over the presentation, and go back and look at the budget and have time to review it. But right now I feel really rushed, and I feel I'm not ready to vote on that main motion.
Okay. Because it's my understanding that that's what we suggested before the noon hour, and people said, no, we want to come back here to consider it after noon.
I thought we were just going to discuss like
Our system of governance, we are in a committee of the whole meeting. We proceed by consideration of motions. But
can we table the motion?
No. Councillor Sheridan, having said that, I think you make a very good point. And do we adjourn the meeting? Do we take a recess?
We don't continue meetings, so you would adjourn today's meeting and call another meeting.
So if we adjourn today's meeting, we will call another meeting at a time agreeable to council. And that'll give more time for consideration.
So you have a motion on the floor. Do we table that motion, or how does
It stays.
it just stays until the next meeting? Okay.
All right? Now, so we need a date to reconvene. Okay, where are we? We're on the 12th. What about the 14th?
Is that,
That's Friday.
That's Friday.
you had some dates picked that you said was available?
There's just a few dates we need to avoid, but the 14th is nowhere near it, so that's fine.
But we have that meeting at 10 on Friday. But we can move it.
We'd have to move that, yeah.
So can we agree 10 o'clock Friday the 14th?
That's like 2 days.
Oh, no, I can't make that.
Okay.
Sorry.
So it's gonna be the
And we
17th
have Monday the 17th.
or the 19th?
So that
How
day,
about the 19th? Would
at
that,
2 o'clock, I have the Bridgetown Advisory meeting.
You can advise them you're gonna be late.
On Monday, yeah.
we mentioned the 19th before. I think that worked for everybody.
All right, how about the 19th, which is Wednesday?
10 o'clock.
10
I have
o'clock.
a meeting that afternoon, but
Okay.
All right.
IMSA meeting is that morning.
Yeah.
It'll only take a half an hour.
You want to start at 9?
Councillor Gunn.
What about starting at 9? Is that too early?
No,
Let's do it.
9:30.
9?
I can't do 9.
9:30.
Can't do 9.
9:30?
10.
10, yeah.
Okay, 9:30.
No, 10.
10.
He can't do 9:30.
Well, you're starting at 10.
Do I hear 10?
Yes,
So,
Sold?
going, gone.
that's good. That'll give us time to go over it.
Good.
I still think it's going to.
Thank you very much. I think,
I just want to confirm one thing.
yes.
Are we or are we not having a meeting on the 24th? No?
No.
Okay, all right.
Because the notice
Not
is still
yet.
up.
The notice is up and,
On the 24th?
yes.
Yeah.
And it's still in my calendar. On the way in.
It's still on my calendar.
It'll be taken down forthwith. Okay. All right. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.